So, very first podcast. This is what we're doing. And what we got here today is March 18th, 2020. And we got Mr. David Rosales here. And we're going to go ahead and introduce him. So, go ahead and say hello.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. So, very beginning of this podcast, my idea was is that I wanted to start doing a collection of lives, people's stories. So, kind of think of it as like an audio biographic telling of your life. So I kind of wanted to just kind of get people's like very beginning, where they grew up, where were they born, how were they raised, the little trials and tribulations from being a child to adolescence to adulthood, where you at now. So kind of, I'll let you take the floor and just kind
Sure.
of start from you, where
Yeah,
where where it all began.
that's really long.
Yeah.
I was born in Orange County,
Okay. What city? I don't think.
city of Orange.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Was
was
it City of
born.
Orange?
Yeah, I was born in the city of Orange. I was actually driving by St. Christopher, or not St. Christopher, St. Joseph,
Hmm.
the hospital that I was born at. I was driving past there, going to work for what 7, 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
We were living. It was an ugly little apartment.
Okay.
Uh, it was right
You were there
there.
for how long? Like living?
I think we were there until I was 4.
Mm.
I remember we were there until I was 4. I broke my nose trying to jump off of some wall when I was a kid.
Really? How old
Yeah,
were you there?
we had a
Like
really good
3 or 4
picture. I
or
was 3. I
okay.
was 3. My older sister Leanna.
So, was that like your first memory, or I mean, maybe
That's
we could start there.
that's the only memory I have of that place.
Oh, that's the only
It's
memory.
the only memory I have of that place.
So, would you consider that like your first memory as far back as you can remember?
That's the only memory that I have. I don't remember anything from kindergarten
Really?
or half of
So you
elementary,
weren't
man.
like first day or
I
being
remember
nervous or a feeling or a vibe that it's like
now.
nothing like that.
I remember one day in kindergarten, we're on a swing set, and the kid next to me was putting his fingers in the chain, and then he goes to jump off, but never took his finger out. He
Ouch!
snapped his
God
fingers
damn!
so bad, and I didn't touch swings until I think I was in like third or fourth grade. I
Yeah,
never
that
went back
probably
to those swing
traumatized
sets.
you just by seeing that shit.
I mean,
God damn.
and now I think back, and I'm like, yo, that shit was awesome. But yeah, I mean, we were there. We were there in Orange County. Um, we're actually down the street from what is it, the Honda Center.
Uh-huh.
We're down the street from that. It wasn't. I mean, it wasn't there back then. It was just dirt. But then we moved out here to Moreno Valley in '86.
Mm-hmm.
So we're around there like
How old,
86,
how old were you then? Oh, well,
4.
you had to been, yeah.
No, it was 86 or 87, like right at the beginning of '87.
Okay.
We're taking trips. I do remember that we took a couple of trips down to the house. The whole area was brand new construction. We got to take a look at the house before we even moved in. There was no carpet, no nothing. I remember like skinning my knee and ripping my whole shin open, running up the stairs because it was all wood, it was all plywood, and me and Ellie were running up the stairs and just
You're
completely
getting a lot of
trashed myself.
memories for a lot of injuries, huh?
Yeah,
Those are like kind of like the first
it's the only thing that
type of
stuck.
things that really stand out.
There was a picture that Ellie posted too. Um, when we were kids, when they were building the house, me and her went and looked at the chimney. I mean,
Okay.
we'd never seen a fireplace and everything. So we're in the backyard, we're looking at this chimney, we're like, oh wow, like what is this? And they're like, oh, come inside. Like, look, you got
Yeah.
a little fireplace. And then they got a picture of us squatted down on that fireplace.
All kind of curious and see what it is.
Yeah, so you fast forward, what is it, 27 years later that we got rid of the house, Ellie went and reenacted that picture and everything, but without me because I was at work.
Okay.
But no, we were stuck in that house for 27 years before my mom got rid of it.
Yeah, yeah. Good times there, man. I
Yeah,
remember.
a lot. There's a lot of times there.
So, then comes, elementary while you're
Yeah.
there. Do you remember anything going on
Yeah,
there?
no, elementary, it was, since it was late 80s, since it was the late 80s and everything, we're at Badger Springs coming into the early 90s.
Mm.
Badger Springs used to be it used to be K through 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And half of the school was the elementary side, the other half was the middle school side. My older sister, I think, was in like 8th grade right before she went to high school,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd go and pop up in my classrooms. I remember 2nd grade, I thought my
Yeah, what
second grade
stands out?
teacher was so pretty, dude.
You know what?
Like,
Kind of think of it like no, it was my fourth grade teacher.
yeah,
I don't know for whatever reason. I guess maybe the elementary ones just maybe stand out a little more.
yeah,
Everyone in middle school was not that
yeah. Badger Springs,
attractive,
Badger Springs Middle
you
School.
know,
There was nobody that you could say was good looking. Badger
or
Springs was
high
really good
school. I
though.
can't even recall anybody. But I don't know
Yeah,
something about maybe elementary, maybe because you were more young and impressionable.
yeah.
Yeah.
Badger Springs. I have a lot of memories of Badger Springs.
Okay.
Like me and Ellie were really. That's when me and Ellie got really really tight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, remember that's when Gangster started up.
Oh, really? I
Yeah,
honestly,
it was
I don't even
always
remember that.
like
So what? I
right.
mean, for those that don't know, because we probably got like maybe a younger or older crowd
Yeah,
that's
no,
probably gonna listen to
Gangster
this.
was just a group of
What
kids
kind of game
against a
is
group
that?
of kids, and you just go sit there and just start beating the shit out of each other. Everybody just
So
say,
you
okay,
just
just no headshots. If it like,
randomly jumping on people?
yeah,
Okay.
basically, you'll just turn around. You would like, we were stupid enough one day to go at the Samoans,
Well, the only time I
and
remember something similar to that was like, remember that ball game, Smear the Queer?
yeah,
I mean, that was the only thing I can recall. Like, but it
no,
wasn't random. I'm like,
oh, this
it
one,
was
no,
like
this
you would
one,
know you want to play, like okay, and you knew what was happening, but from what you're telling me, it's
no,
like just
with the
random.
way it was, yeah, it's like you'd see a group of people, it's like anywhere between like 5 to 10. You'd walk up next to each other, and then one would be like, "What's up, man? Gangster, gangster." And they'd be like, "What?" And then just start fucking going at each other. But like you'd put it out there, like, "Okay, it's gangster, gangster," and
Yeah,
then everybody would tell you, "Okay, no headshots. If you get
yeah,
punched in the head, then it's going to be a real fight." And
yeah,
then
yeah.
we actually like it was probably like 15 of us that got suspended all at one time. But yeah,
That's
no,
funny.
no,
No,
Badger
I
Springs was
don't
really
recall the
good.
game. So like you telling me it's kind of like the first one. I'm like, okay, you know,
Yeah, that one stuck out. That one stuck out.
well,
It was
like
really
I mean,
funny.
those were play fights, but during those young years, did you ever actually have like a real fight, like,
Yeah,
or you kind of like, okay, this is your first altercation? Were you
yeah,
more
yeah.
like,
My very first actual fight was, I think it was in 6th grade,
okay, and
and
how'd that go down? Like, where to start?
Caesar, my brother,
Mm-hmm.
ended up picking a fight with somebody, and I don't remember what happened. I don't remember what happened or how it started. All I know is that this guy walks up, and this guy's in like 8th grade, and he's like, "Man," he was like, "That's your brother?" I was like, "Yeah, just stay out of it." Next thing you know, the guy slaps me. Next thing you know, I try to swing back, and he knocks me over, and this guy was like
Um,
twice my size. So I'm laying on the floor, and he goes to try to pick me up, and I grab him from his shirt, and I swear, dude, I cocked my leg like floor to his nuts,
okay,
just like floor to his nuts, like 7 or 8 times. He didn't even twitch.
Jesus,
He did not even
was he a big
twitch.
fat guy or is
Yeah, he was. No, no, he wasn't that fat,
or
but
like
he was.
I would think like a chubby thighs would have dodged some of that or
No,
blocked some
no,
of
dude.
that.
He was like.
Just
I was laid out on the floor, facing upward, and then he just like kind of like steps over me, so his
mm,
feet are at my hips, and then I
yeah,
started trying to push him back. As soon as he fell back, I was just like
boom.
perfect, and I'm holding his shirt, and I'm just kicking away, man, and I'm just going and going and going, and I was like,
Just
this
kind of
isn't
like
working,
that using like what movies taught you kind of tactic,
right?
just kind of
Like
like I
the
remember
nuts.
this. This is how you get a bully.
But I was like, okay, I was like, this isn't working. So I grabbed him from his collar, and then I pulled him like face first into the ground. So as soon as he fell over, that's when I just sat there and got him in a headlock, and I
Okay.
held him there. But he's still like on his knees, and he's like straddling me now. So he's on his knees, and I'm sitting here just holding him in a headlock. And then next thing you know, he gets ripped off of me, and I was like, oh man, I'm gonna die.
Mm.
So I get up and I put my head down, try to swing, and then I get slapped in the side of the head, and I get dragged to the office.
Mm.
I wish I remember his name.
Well, who broke it up?
It was
Was it
a
like one of
campus
the like
supervisor.
camp? I was gonna say campus supervisor.
And then that was the first time that I'd gotten suspended in middle school.
Really?
Yeah,
How many days if you remember?
it
Or
was 3 days.
that's 3
It was
days.
3 days. My dad took me to work, and I was painting curbs and like
Okay.
painting the bathroom and all that. It was super annoying.
So that was sixth grade, huh?
Yeah, that was 6th grade. And then there
So I
was this.
mean, right around there, or maybe a couple years before. I mean, did you start noticing girls? Were you already kind of fresh like
I
that?
can't even remember.
You can't remember,
I
like
can't
maybe
even
that
remember. I
first
know.
like interest that maybe.
Yeah, no, like saying that I had girlfriends and everything. I remember somewhere in like third, fourth, and 5th grade, I was like, "Yeah, that's
Mm,
my girlfriend. That's my girlfriend. That's my girlfriend," and they all knew and they were cool with
yeah,
it.
yeah.
It was always like that. And 6th grade is when it basically turned into a slut. Sixth, seventh, and 8th grade was, yeah, it was like the slutty years.
Mm.
Like,
Just being one of those guys that just like, hey, now you
yeah,
kind of thing.
basically,
Okay.
like the girlfriend would last maybe a week or two, and then okay, on to the
That's
next
usually
one.
the timetable
Yeah,
for like middle school. Middle school was like that 1 week, 2 weeks, and then everybody just kind of moves on, or just like no hard feelings. It was like, okay.
yeah,
It was just kind of like, I don't know. Maybe we were just kind of like trying things. I think we all at that age, that's what we're figuring out. It's just
yeah.
trying things and
The
just
the hardest
maybe
thing,
just knowing.
the hardest thing. Did you ever have any problems, like in sixth and seventh grade, to go and ask a girl to go to the dance with you?
Yeah, I just never did it.
Dude, it was so hard, man. That one, I
Yeah,
was
I never did.
shaking. Like I was shaking. It was in sixth grade. It was in sixth grade. Dude, the chick's name is Wendy Sutton.
Really.
I actually
And
remember
so
that
that was
name.
the first one you like made that
That was,
courageous approach.
yeah, that was the first time I'd ever actually like nutted up and went and said, "Hey, so you want to go to the dance with me?"
Mm,
It never came out like that though.
okay.
I pictured it. It was gonna be
Yeah,
so easy. You're gonna be all suave, all nonchalant, like, "Hey,
yeah.
what's up?" I
Like
mean,
having that
like,
narrator voice of like the Wonder
yeah,
Years, kind of like, okay, this is it, and
here
then
he
just
comes. He's gonna drop the bomb.
yeah.
But she was my girlfriend.
Okay.
That was
Well,
that
yeah. I
was the
mean, well,
fun
that
part.
should have been a given then.
She was
So
my
then,
girlfriend.
why the fear?
I have no clue, man. Have
I
no
mean,
clue.
it's kind of like a default. Like, well, we're already together.
Right?
Yeah.
So no, but I walked up to her and everything, and I couldn't get it out. And then
Mm,
her little girlfriends were there, and they were running their mouths like, "Just say it, just say it." And I was
maybe
like,
that was
"Shut
it.
up,
Maybe it was the whole stage fright. You had an
dude."
audience.
You know how
I think
like when
that's
you were a
probably it.
kid, when you were a kid and you
Huh.
were crying like really, really hard, and you get that whole like double breath,
Yeah.
like sucking in.
Like
Yeah, you're
you're
like,
trying to catch your breath.
that's how I asked her. That's how it came out. I was like, "Hey, so you, you, hold on. Do you, and well, you want to go to the dance with me?" Like it finally came out, like when you spit it out and everything.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "Yeah, I thought we already were." And I was just like, I just wanted to make sure. And dude,
Mm.
I stood there in a corner for probably like 30 minutes. I skipped, I think it was like third or fourth period because I was freaking out so bad.
Mm.
That was like, that's to the day, that's probably the worst anxiety I've ever had in my life.
Okay. I mean, but you asked, you said yes, and you
Yeah,
went.
no, after that one,
And then
shit was
how
gone.
do you remember anything of the dance?
Yeah,
How it
that was the
went?
first time I'd ever actually like, what was it? They called it French kissing.
Okay.
That was the first time. It was in sixth grade. I'm telling you, that's that's why my life started. That's where my life started and ended me in this fucking position.
Okay. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
And
no, and like literally, there's
how
a couple of
about,
other ex girlfriends.
making friends and gathering, because I know during those times, usually that's that middle school time where you have like a couple of close friends in elementary, but middle school's kind of when you start doing the crew,
Yeah.
where people start, kind of gathering. I think a lot of reason why people do that is just gather those friendships. It's kind of like, protection by
Hmm.
numbers. A lot of people start growing those insecurities, people start changing. So yeah, you have that friendship that helps kind of everyone's going through it. It's not just you, those
I think
fears or insecurities.
I
And
I want to say it was somewhere around like seventh or eighth grade when they shut down March Air Force Base.
hmm
So like all of elementary, and then I can't remember if it was like the first or second year into middle school into Badger Springs. All the schools, since I was on that south end over there, right next to the base, most of it was the military
hmm
housings. Kids had to go from, what is it now, Meridian,
hmm
the Meridian and Cactus area. They'd have to
yeah,
go all the way down to us.
okay,
And I mean, this was what, Paris and, no, it's Indian and JFK,
hmm
or Indian and Delphinium.
okay,
So I mean, yeah, we ended up growing up. We ended up growing. Well, we ended up that half of childhood we ended up doing with a lot of like military families and everything. And basically, when they left, when they closed down the base,
hmm
all those families left, and we were left like complete. I was left completely empty-handed. I had no
really.
friends.
So you had like those military family friends that just up and left,
Yeah,
and you kind of
so
just
they none of them could stay. They shut down
yeah,
the majority of the base. They was
yeah,
inactive now. They kept a little portion of it still active, but the majority of it, they were all living on base housing. What was it? Arnold Heights
hmm
is what it was called.
Okay.
And no, I mean everybody left. Everybody was
Mm.
gone.
But I mean, people leave, but you make new
Yeah,
friends.
no,
And
I still
how
had
did
a
it go?
few, I still had a few friends. I mean, it was always girls and shit.
Hmm.
But all the guys that I knew and actually hung out with, they had all left.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was in seventh grade. So in seventh grade, I basically started over, and it was a completely different group of people.
Hmm.
The culture completely changed 100%.
Okay.
The whole culture of the school changed 100%. It wasn't that whole like
So there
military
was like
brats and
much
all that.
more significant like loss in people. There was like maybe less people there.
Yeah. Oh, it was a really big hit.
Mm.
It was a really big hit because by the time I got into middle school, they had already changed. No, yeah, before I got into middle school, I think it was my fifth grade or no, yeah, in fifth grade is when they opened up Chaparral Hills,
Hmm.
and it was the trailers. It wasn't fifth grade; it was fourth grade, and they had it as trailers. So it was right
Mm.
next to Badger Springs, and it was nothing but trailers.
It's funny, like when you hear about those memes that you saw, where like those bungalows and trailers,
Hmm.
one ended up they were like temporary classrooms, but ended up being like permanent
Yeah,
classrooms.
yeah, like the whole U-wing at Mobile
Yeah,
is
yeah,
still there.
just yeah,
They're still there.
yeah.
But no, well, with Chaparral Hills, it lasted. It did last. It lasted probably like I want to say it's more than 10 years, maybe 15 years.
Mm.
Now they actually built a school.
Yeah,
Now there's actually a school built,
yeah,
but no, it was trailers, dude. It was trailers
yeah.
for way too long.
Okay.
So I mean, because of how many more families were coming in, like mid '80s is when that whole area blew up because all those houses were brand new. They were going for, I think, my dad said that we got the house for $100,000.
Nice.
And back 80, 86, 87, that was a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah. I remember I looked up my parents' house back in just even '97. I think it was like 98,000.
Hmm.
So it's funny because we were doing our house hunting ourselves, me and my wife, and then we're like, huh, let's look up our addresses. Let's look up, our parents' house. Like, how much did they pay for them? Because you could look up houses and it'll have records
Yeah,
of
it'll show
every
records of
time
from, yeah,
it
pretty
was
much
sold
basically day
and for
one.
how
Yeah.
much. And yeah, we were like, oh shit, like, you know,
Yeah, man.
and we're kind of joking about it recently. Like, yeah, we could buy our house right now, 20,000 or 200,000 ish. And fucking 20 years from now, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, you can't buy a house anything less than 2 million.
Dude, well, that's
Who
that
knows the inflation and everything.
thinking of that. Like me and Alicia have been talking a lot about leaving the state.
Hmm.
But then
There's
she's like,
been a
okay,
lot of talk of that. Yeah,
yeah, but she's
everyone.
like, okay, but when? And I was like, you know what? I was like, because of Ethan moving in, I was like, he graduates in 2 years. I
Hmm.
was like, let's give him those 2 years. David David's gonna be either getting out or re-upping for another term with the military. So we'll see where he's gonna land, but he's not gonna be active. He said he's not gonna go active again, and I was like, we'll talk to him so that way we can all land at the same state,
Yeah.
so we can be at least a couple miles away. Like if Adina, or not Adina, but if Adriana wants to stay out here instead of following us to be closer to David, she can. Ethan, I want him to finish high school so that way he can make the same choice. I don't want
Mm.
to force him to move. And she was like, well, why don't you just start shopping around and looking around, see what kind of areas you want to go to?
Mm.
She was like, I was thinking of like certain parts of Tennessee. And I was like, David's in Tennessee and he hates it. He despises it. And she was like, well, what about Virginia? I hear it's really nice. I was like, yeah. I was like, I also know it's really racist. And she was
Yeah.
like, well, what about,
Apparently. Yeah.
right? So
Uh,
I was like, no. I was like, I'm not going to go put myself into a situation to where she was like, no, but she was like, you can pass as a white boy. And I was like, yeah. I was like, until I get mad. I was like, once I get mad, I was like, I start cussing everything out in
uh,
Spanish because that's the only way it comes out. I was like, so no. I was like, no. I was
yeah.
like, definitely not Tennessee.
Well, everyone's going Arizona. Everyone's going Texas, Iowa,
I can't do Arizona.
Arkansas.
I can't do Arizona, dude. We're already living in Southern California where it's
Yeah.
insanely hot.
Yeah.
To go move to the dirt, like no, I'm good.
That's why it's so cheap.
Yeah, but Northern Arizona, I
That's
think about it,
Yeah,
but
you know what? There are some nice places. I forgot what's What's the
Flagstaff.
landmark out there?
So Flagstaff is
Right, they
northern
got a good
Arizona.
national park out there. We were driving by
Yeah,
on the way to Texas, and there was like I forgot something that's out there.
yeah. I can't remember the name, but I mean we've
Mm.
gone up there. We've gone up there a few times, but it's always northern Arizona. My father-in-law and my brother-in-laws both live over there,
Mm-hmm.
so like we'll go for New Year's, but we'll go get a cabin.
Mm.
Like the Grand Canyon is up there in northern Arizona,
I think that's what it was.
probably.
I think that's what I was thinking. I was like, there's a fucking something up there, and
Mm,
we're like, yeah, because we were driving back from Texas around 4th of July last year, and I was like, yeah, we should go to like the Grand Canyon.
yeah,
It's like right there.
dude, it's crazy, man.
But it
It's
was like,
crazy, crazy. Have you been there?
no, I
So
haven't.
you walk up,
So
right?
I think it was like a 50-mile detour. So it was like
Ah, dude,
we were
it would have
thinking
been so
about it.
worth it. Would have been so worth it. I'll have to see if I still have the pictures on my phone. But you walk up, right, and you look out. It's fucking fake, dude. You're looking at it, you're like, that shit's fake. Like there's a fucking green screen back there and shit, and it's a really tall one. That shit was fake as fuck. And then you
Mm-hmm.
take a picture of it, and it looks more fake.
Wow.
So we got snowed in. There was
Probably
like
got
two
some
or
good
3 feet of
weather or
snow.
some good clarity where you could see everything nice and
Oh, it
sharp.
was. It was, dude. I
Mm.
mean, it was like super, super cold. So air's thinner,
Mm.
100% visibility. You could see until you couldn't see any further. So
Mm.
everything was perfectly crystal clear. But it was so perfect that it looked fake.
There you go. Sometimes it's just that Mother Nature just
Right? It's like
slaps on the paintbrush.
God was like, hey, look, here's my
Hey,
paintbrush,
check it out.
and it's fake as shit. So it's crazy, dude. It blew my mind. And then to see snow on it,
Yeah.
because they
I,
were like,
I
yeah,
didn't even
no,
know it snowed in the
yeah,
Grand
they're like,
Canyon.
no, you'll never see snow there. We got there, there's fucking snow.
Yeah. Didn't Evil Knievel jump the Grand Canyon?
I can't remember.
I think so. I think that was all the hoopla when the guy was just
Dude,
like fucking jumping.
if you wouldn't have mentioned him, I would never have remembered Evil Knievel.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen quite a few of his documentaries, man. The guy would land most of his ones, but the ones that were really big, and he'd mostly eat shit. And I think people
Yeah,
were just like, I want to see a train wreck, you know? It's like
yeah.
people want to see like that
But
NASCAR
that's life,
crash or
dude.
something, you
But
know?
that's honestly life.
Yeah.
Like it's the majority of it is you're gonna be trying over and over and over and over again, and
Hmm.
then somebody's gonna see you hit.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So
So going back, man, we're back in middle school.
yeah. So
Families move out.
that
Starting to make new friends
yeah,
with
and
the
then
new
it turned
people
into a
around
little.
you.
At that time, it turned into a little like cholo style shit.
Really? So you went through a little cholo phase
Yeah,
back
did a
then?
little fucking cholo phase.
Okay.
And then those back then it was a super big ass Ben Davis fucking
Yeah.
pants. I didn't have to buy any of them. I just
I think
still
everybody went through that
do it.
super baggy pants.
No, this was a
Never bought
super
Ben
baggy pants
Davis.
with the foldovers. You're
Yeah.
a size 28 waist, and
Yeah,
you're
the
wearing
little
your
leather
brother's or your dad's.
belts.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I went through all that. Had
it's
all
funny all
little.
that shit's coming. Well, I don't think the gangster phase is coming, but all the 90s stuff. So like
Yeah.
that was us in the 90s.
As long as it
We
isn't
were
those
in
big
middle
ass
school.
baggy pants, dude,
Yeah.
because I just can't do that.
Oh no. I mean,
I,
well, kids nowadays they'll have to learn the hard way. They got to put like little thumbtacks on the back of the shoes or little tape, little
dude,
double tapes.
I just ripped them up. It was way too much work for me.
Yeah.
And then my dad, being military my whole life, he was
Hmm.
like insanely strict, dude.
Okay.
So my mom took us shopping, and I saw them. What were they? Stussies?
Stuzzy?
Is that what they were?
Yeah, Stuzzy.
Can't fucking remember anymore. But
Yeah.
yeah, she bought me some of those, and she's like, "Do they fit?" I was like, "Yeah, they fit." And I didn't tell her how baggy they were. I got home. I had it. What was it? Like a Bugs Bunny,
Yeah.
all decked out too,
Yeah.
all baggy pants and all that shit with a backwards hat on.
I remember those. It was like the
So
Looney Tunes started
yeah,
like a little crisscross type of
yeah, that whole crisscross
outfits, but they
style.
were like it was because you're so used to seeing cartoons being cartoons,
Hmm.
and then yeah, when we first saw that shit, like they were wearing like today's fashion. We're like, oh shit, that's dope.
Yeah, dude.
Oh man, I kid you not. I remember being like, it wasn't even middle school. It was like I remember perfectly because it was for my elementary graduation. Like I remember like, oh, I wanted that shirt because it was like the Bugs Bunny and Tasmanian Devil,
Hmm.
and it had little arms folded. I was like, oh, I want to get that
Yeah, I
shirt.
had that shirt.
And then like my dad got it for me for like that graduation. I was like, all right, here you go, man. You wanted it, so I was like, go ahead.
Dude, I'd like to see those shirts come back. It was so
I'm sure they
good.
will.
It was so
I don't
good,
know.
dude.
Fashion nowadays just turns around, man.
Yeah,
You
it
see
just comes back.
everybody just copying everybody from every
Yeah,
era.
well, like Adriana had her like '70s style look like 4 years
Mm,
ago, 3 or 4 years
mm.
ago.
What was
She
it?
was still in high school and
What kind of
everything.
like
Yeah, she
little
was
like
going.
bag or the little bell bottoms
Yeah,
or the
like
little
boot cut style, like bell
or the
bottoms and
little
everything.
ruffled type
Hmm.
style
She was
clothes?
doing that for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like just we live in a time warp. You could
Yeah.
literally show up from any decade of the 20th century and you'd be like, all right, I'll fuck with that.
Hmm.
And people won't even blink twice. So it's like the perfect time to be a time traveler and just be in total incognito.
Yeah, dude. And then what was it when we were in high school? Everybody wanted to iron all their shit, and you were
Starch
even
it,
you were
iron
even
it,
ironing your fucking chonies.
huh?
Perfect
The
button up
undershirts, I mean, like,
shirts.
it's an undershirt. No one's gonna see
Yeah.
it under you.
Nobody
But yeah,
cared
we
about the
were all
undershirt, but
about
you had a
ironing it.
button up shirt. How often do you wear button up shirts?
I know, man.
Like you wear the button up shirts and you get clean and everything to go to work, but if you're not at work or you're sitting there wearing those button up shirts and everything,
Hmm.
trying to look all pretty tucked in,
You know?
like no, we don't do that.
Ah, the fashion, the growing pains. I think every generation just wants to just, I don't know, I guess just stand out, trying to find their identity, trying to
Yeah.
really make their mark and whatever fashion risk they take, whether it's skinny jeans or, old fashion from another decade or, whatever the fuck we did, you know, with
Hmm.
the bangs,
Never did them.
never did them.
Never did them, dude.
I never did them
Never did
either.
them.
My brother and cousin did. So for those that
No.
don't know, they're our listeners. The bangs we're talking about is like it would just be everything shaved off or trimmed down all the way down, except for the front bangs where it would stay in
You'd
place.
have them as long as
Yeah,
possible, slicked back.
and then just slick back.
What are those TikTok guys?
What TikTok
That,
guys?
you haven't seen them?
Mm-mm.
I'll have to find them and I'll pull it up. But this guy does the whole rebel thing with the bangs and all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, it's so good.
Well,
Guys
I
are
think it's a
dying.
little piece of hair, but he has like tape on it,
Yeah,
and it
he
just
put it.
comes.
Yeah, yeah.
I know what you're talking
He just
about.
cut the piece off and
Like
just
I
taped
was,
it to his
yeah,
head.
I remember it was like a Rebel Familia
Yeah,
Alliance,
yeah.
whatever, and then
That
they were all like
horrible,
dancing to
dude.
the old school deep house shit.
And that shit pops into my head, dude. Like Keith rocked that look for a minute, dude.
Uh,
Keith rocked
yeah,
that shit for a minute. I was like, dude,
I remember.
you gotta let that hair go, bro.
Yeah,
I think he cut
brother,
it off.
cousin. I think everyone we knew.
I think Keith cut it off. It was my eighth grade year, his seventh grade.
Hmm.
We're in summer school.
Uh-huh.
We're in summer school at Palm Middle School,
Mm.
and my mom was the manager at Carl's Jr. right
So
there on
remind me again.
Elder.
Badgers was your elementary, but
Badgers. I
Palm.
started so
Because
it was
I honestly
Serrano.
forget. You guys bring up schools all the
Yeah,
time when I hear stories about way back in the day, and I'm like, I didn't grow up here, so
yeah.
I think Badgers, I think middle school, but it's elementary,
No, no.
or it was.
Now it's only middle
Now
school.
it's
It
only.
used to be kindergarten through
Okay, so it
eighth
was like
grade.
way.
Yeah,
Okay,
this was
okay, maybe
like
that's what throws me off
yeah,
every
this was like
time.
87, 88.
Yeah, because every time that someone always says like Badgers, I'm like, I'm thinking middle school, but then someone says like, yeah, we knew each other from like third grade in Badger. I
Yeah,
was like, what?
yeah. Cody and Casey,
Okay,
they were there too.
okay.
They were at Chaparral Hills with us. But yeah, no, this
So what's
was
Chaparral Hills then?
Chaparral Hills is now the elementary school.
Okay.
No, yeah, Chaparral Hills is the elementary school, and right next door is Badger Springs, and that's the middle school. And then
Okay.
straight down the street, going towards Heacock, you'll find Serrano. That's another elementary school.
Gotcha.
It's just because that how
On
fast that
Decennial.
whole on the same exact street.
Yeah.
It's
I
just how
remember.
fast the area grew back
Mm-hmm.
then. They just had to keep on putting more and more and more in place.
Mm. So just more schools?
Yeah.
So that accommodate everybody.
Hmm.
Mm.
So I did Serrano
So
for
who do
kindergarten.
you know that from elementary that actually stayed, like relevant even after high school? Like you said it was Casey and Cody and then like
Yeah,
who else like kind of like was around
there's so
like
many of
from
us.
that little? Like I'm just
Like
kind of curious from like way
Cody,
back.
Casey, Billy.
Billy?
Yeah, dude, Billy. Oh man, dude, I used to. Oh my god. So since childhood, man, Billy's brother, I think it's John. He used to be that punk asshole teenage kid that
Mm-hmm.
right around our area.
Mm-hmm. Was he like a
And
bully?
Dude, he was beyond bully, dude. That kid
Yeah.
was a fucking asshole, man.
Okay.
He used to sit there and go and try to pick fights with everybody. They had, I don't know if it was a BB gun or a pellet gun. They fucking shoot at our windows. They egged our house. And I mean, they
Jeez.
did this to anybody and everybody.
Okay.
I remember he was riding down the street one day and he was yelling and talking a bunch of shit. My grandma's over there outside yelling at us.
Mm-hmm.
My grandma was with us our whole life and everything, and she'd beat the shit out of us.
Yeah.
And he's running by and he yells, I think he called my grandma a bitch or something. He's riding by on his bike. My grandma starts yelling at him, and I run out to my grass and I rip this little branch off of the tree that was in our yard.
Mm-hmm.
Something probably like 3, 4 feet long, and fucking chucked it and it went in his front spokes, dude.
Shoo.
And he did this cool fucking front flip, just fucking face first, and just planted face first.
You know, I don't think I ever got a chance to meet any of like Billy's siblings.
No, well, Billy doesn't really have a relationship with them either.
Oh.
So, I mean, for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
I've never really pried with them. It's just, I know they just always had it rough.
Yeah.
So, but he was just like, yeah, no. He's like, I'm doing my own thing. He's like, I'm
Yeah, and
happy.
you know what? I think part of this is kind of why I want to do this podcast because I know like we're such good friends when we used to hang out, but I don't think we ever got in depth to like conversations with like growing up, siblings, family relationships, and all this
Yeah,
ties. So I think this is kind of more of a way to kind of like not just know more about you, but even like whoever listens, our audience, whoever wants to get to know more about you. Like I said, it's your audio biography,
right.
So whatever you want to tell, whatever you want to divulge,
Yeah.
it's up to you.
No, and I mean, even at that, like, when you say it like that, there's a lot of people that'll peak in high school,
Hmm.
you know, and then they'll stay stuck there.
Yeah, the
My my I
I know
don't
what you
I
mean.
don't I don't even think I've hit the peak yet because I mean as far as I go it's the kids.
Hmm.
Like once like all the kids have grown up and they start their lives, I think that's where my peak is going to be at just because of the way everything went down.
Hmm. Well, and if we're talking peaks, I mean, everyone should have that mentality. Like, there is no such thing as a peak.
Right.
You just every year you try to be
Mhm.
the best you can be. So
Right.
when people say like, yeah, the whole peak thing, I think people are just like too trapped in a moment, too trapped in like that era or bubble where they once were, where maybe they felt very comforted by the memory of just either having like a large group of friends that they know they can count on, because as you know, as you get older, you get less and less
Right.
friends. People grow up, they move away,
Yeah, mentality
they grow.
shift,
Yeah, exactly. Their mentality
mentality and
shifts.
shift and life
And I think
shifts.
people like to capture that, that innocence of times, that stand by me moments where just like that tight little group of friends where you kind of just did, things together and it felt like, you were in the trenches, kind of like
Right.
figuring out life. So
Yeah.
it's kind of cool, like
But see,
when you
at the
look at it
same
that way,
time,
but you can't live
that's
that
where
life.
yeah, that's where like movies came into place. Like
Hmm.
people had this mentality when we were growing up. Like we watched the movies and we were like, man, that's what I want.
Yeah.
In today's society, it's nothing but the social media.
Yeah.
That's the biggest problem. Like social media is like, hey, this is the way your life should actually be because, social media says that, Kim Kardashian has it really simple and easy and all you gotta do is take a picture of yourself.
Just work, bitch.
That's it,
Just
just
get off
work.
your ass and work. Yeah. Yeah. If
I
it's
thought
only
that
that
shit was
easy.
hilarious, dude.
Yeah, you get. But it's funny, like somebody broke it down, like her. It was like, yeah, if you're born into a rich family and you have rich friends and famous friends,
Yeah.
yeah, hold on to them and then to have a sex tape, make a reality show out of
Hmm.
it. Yeah, you're absolutely get all this plastic surgery to make
Yeah,
you
you had
more
two
attractive.
famous
Yeah,
dads. One passed away, the other
exactly,
one turned into a woman. I was like,
exactly.
man, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah,
When I heard that part, that was pretty harsh.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's yeah, it's not that easy.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, you'd like to think, yeah, it's hard work and boom, you're gonna make it. But
yeah,
a lot of it is, yeah, hard work, but a lot of it is opportunity and just
yeah,
dumb luck, even.
hmm,
I remember somebody was telling me that. I think I was just watching a podcast with Will Ferrell, and his dad was like telling him that, like, hey, if this world was all about talent, that's a guarantee you're gonna make it in this business.
hmm,
You're gonna make it, obviously, because I know you're talented, but in this world, it's like, yeah, it's talent and just luck
yeah,
just so. And he said that, just hearing that advice just, took the pressure off. Like, yeah, you're right. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, it does. And of course, he is who he is now, but just that having that conversation, let him know that yeah, it's like you can be all the talented in the world, but if you don't put yourself in that right position for that opportunity,
Hmm.
it's not gonna happen.
But even that, I can't remember if it was Shaq or Steve Harvey.
Hmm.
One of them two was like, "I'm not gonna leave my kids a penny.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not leaving them anything."
Really?
Yeah, I can't remember. I want to say it was Steve Harvey. He was like, "I'm not gonna leave my kids anything. Like right now they're set up. I'm doing everything for them, and they have a good life. But once they become adults and they
And
start
I,
doing
I
their
get
thing,
that because obviously they're set for life with just the
right?
money their parents make, and obviously it would make them like, well, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to try.
Yeah, I got a
I could
trust
I
fund to
could be
live
an
off of.
asshole if I want. I
Yeah.
get that.
So and that's a good thing. Like you say,
I get
okay,
it.
you know what, you're a millionaire, multimillionaire, or you're not even. You're making good money, and you set your kids up. Like people that say, because this was something that I learned recently with the whole life insurance and everything.
Mm,
This dude comes out and he's like, all right, I'm going to start explaining to you guys about like annuities. And he's like, I want to make all the money that I can in the world, like as much money as I possibly can for myself. He's like, but I'm going to set up a life insurance policy for my kids. He was like, whatever the number you want it to be. If it's like, I have 6 kids, so I want $60,000 for each of them to get 10, or I want 6 million for each of them to get a million, whatever that number
yeah.
is. But every single penny that I'll make in my life, I want to spend
Hmm.
it myself.
Yeah.
Like I want to use every last penny. Like the day that I die, I want that last check or whatever that I wrote, or the last time I
Hmm.
swipe my card to bounce, and
Yep.
then I die. Like I'm not leaving my kids any of my money. This is what this guy
Oh.
said. And I
Yeah.
mean, everybody was busting up. And I was like, dude, that makes so much sense.
Hmm.
Like, if you work that hard your whole life, why would you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put it aside and wait for the kids? Like, put a life insurance policy, do whatever you have to do.
I don't know.
People,
Spend it, man.
yeah, millionaires and everything, if they set up their kids,
Let them
yeah, so
let
the
them
the
build their
whole
own
childhood,
lives.
right?
Yeah.
Up until they graduate college. If you can afford to do every last thing for them and you say you pick the career and this and that, and this is what's going to make you money and take care of you for the rest of your life, and then they say okay, and they start their career, and they're done. Like okay, well now you're on your own.
Hmm.
Or they say, hey, you know what? Since you're getting married or since you're buying a house or whatever, I'm gonna hook you up with this. But to say like the trust fund things, yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's what definitely did change a lot.
Well, like I can understand for like those super riches like Shaq. I think he's worth close to $1 billion. Steve Harvey, maybe a couple 100 million, or maybe a couple million.
Isn't
But
Shaq over it?
Shaq is almost at a billion. So
Oh
like
no, it's
that
Jordan.
yeah, Jordan's
It's
over a
Jordan.
billion, and I think Magic
Yeah,
Johnson's over a billion. So those are the only two like major athletes that
right.
are at a billion. But like to tell them I'm not gonna give you shit, like is a good motivator.
Yeah,
So that at least they have it in their mind. But maybe like on paper, it's like yeah, it's written in there. Like yeah, they'll get a couple
yeah,
million.
yeah. They'll get a
But to
settlement. They'll
tell
get
them
something.
and put them on notice, like hey, no, it's like don't just sit around, party it up, make stupid selfies, and and
Mm-hmm.
and get like literally go make something of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just like ride my coattails. That's a good way to motivate
Yeah,
somebody. So I get where they're coming from, but who knows? Maybe on their end, they're actually like, no, like you're literally out of my will
yeah.
for any
Like
kind of
like
money.
you're not like we're not leaving anything there.
Yeah, that'd be
So,
crazy,
but yeah, no,
but
no. It
it's
was
it's
it was
their
a really good
choice.
idea. It was a really
Yeah.
good idea because and we can go back to that. So like Desert Storm happened,
Hmm.
right? And I want to say Desert Storm was somewhere around like middle school.
92,
Yeah, so it was yeah, then it was
I
so
want to
yeah, it
say
was somewhere around middle school.
92, 91.
I'd have to look it up as far as like when we were in school.
Mm-hmm.
It was early 90s and this was like the first talk that my dad had ever sat us down and everything to say anything because I mean, he was a light from the military, so the first thing he did, especially back then being a medic, he volunteered. Like as soon as he heard something was going down, he was like, "I volunteer." Put his hand up.
Mm-hmm.
So he takes us into the garage. He has his whole kit and everything out. He's packing everything up. Back then, they were still wearing the what was it? The woodland colors and everything. It was right before they gave him those desert colors,
Yeah.
but they had black boots still. And since I was a kid, dude, he had me polishing his boots.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, "You might need to learn this one day." He was like, "You might, he was like, if you enlist, he was like, you'll need to know this." So I was sitting there polishing his black boots. He calls Caesar into the garage, my older brother. He calls Ellie, my younger sister, into the garage. I mean, all of us were what? Ellie's 2 years younger than I am, so he was a
Mm-hmm.
year older than I am. And he sits us down. He was like, just in case. He was like, just in case I don't come home. He was like, you guys are set.
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, what are you talking about? He was like, okay. So he was like, the storm is happening, blah, blah, blah. He was like, just in case.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, he was like, each of you are going to get, like $40,000. He was like, then your mom's going to get the rest. And we're like, okay, like,
Yeah.
where are you going with this?
Yeah.
So left everything all twisted for
So that's
us.
how he opens it up. Not like, hey,
Yeah,
by the
no,
way, this might happen, that might
no,
happen.
it was a straight like
Yeah,
punch
rip
in
a
the
band-aid
throat,
off.
dude.
Yeah.
It was a straight punch in the throat. I mean, and that's the way he did it every single time.
Mm-hmm.
So like with the whole Iraq and everything, it was 3 tours, and he did it the same exact way. So, but those, I mean, that changed. But so, like going back to all that, we go through all that, and he goes out. He wasn't gone for very long. I want to say it was probably like 6 months, and then they rotated him back, and short lived, and it was over. We get into high school. What was it? My freshman year is when you and I met.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, your group of friends from what was it, Sunnymead?
Well, I got there sophomore year, so it had to been sophomore year. Because were you sophomore
I
too,
was
or
I was
you were your junior?
2001.
Okay, that was 2000.
Yeah.
So then,
So
yeah,
your
you
sophomore
were a
year was my
freshman.
freshman
I
year.
was a sophomore.
So
Yeah,
that's when we met.
yeah.
And then it was your
Fun
guys'.
fact: I was only there 2 years.
Oh, that's right, huh? Because you graduated, or you went to March?
I went to March. I
Yeah. Good.
tried to continue it,
Mm,
and then yeah, so I was there sophomore, junior year, and then my senior year I tried to do March and just didn't work out. But
yeah.
going back to you.
No, well, I mean, even I had even considered it because it was a sloppy mess.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll get to that right now. But yeah, that was my freshman year. It was your group of friends and a few of mine from Badger Springs, and yours was Sunnymead, right? But Sunnymead. Oh no, yeah,
I was there
the
sophomore
guys
year.
that you were no, the guys that you started
Yeah,
talking to when we all ended up. It was Trigger and all them.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were all Sunnymead. They were all the Sunnymead group,
yeah,
and then we were the Badger Springs group, and then we all ended up just clicking together.
yeah.
And I mean, that's all she wrote for those my 4 years there.
Yeah, it was an interesting time back then. I remember it was just it was a whole mesh of everybody, and not just like people that were like how you said from different middle schools, but even from different like cities. I mean, there'd be
From
like somebody
everywhere.
from like, oh yeah, I came from Riverside.
Like
I had even a
Stephanie.
couple friends that even came with me from Orange County. So they were like, I know like two people, or at least three people I knew that actually were from this high school I was at that actually moved over here as well and went to the same high school. But it's
That
funny,
oddly,
we never talked.
well, because back then, what was it? Late '80s
Mm-hmm.
through late '80s up until like early '90s when the base and everything had shut down. Reno Valley was rated like really, really high. I want to say like top
Mm-hmm.
10 best cities to raise a family in the U.S.
Okay.
Not just California. It was in the U.S. I mean, my dad was blowing this up to the whole family, and he was showing them the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, "Yeah," he was like, "It was on the news." He was like, "It was this and that." I mean, he was like super excited because
Yeah.
my dad's family's all in Ventura. They're all over Ventura. They're all over Camarillo, Oxnard, El Rio, all over Ventura.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been telling us to the day. They still tell me they're like, "Why haven't you moved out here?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Dude, I can't afford to live in fucking Ventura County."
Yeah, it's a nice area, dude. Every time
Yeah.
I go up there, it's like on my way to Santa Barbara, and
Hmm.
it's like, I got Oxnard, Ventura, the whole
Yeah.
area. It's up there. It's like right on the coast. It's like
Yeah, but I mean,
gorgeous.
you go out there and they're $800,000, $900,000
Yeah.
for a 1,200 square foot house
Yeah.
on what is it, like 4,500, maybe 6,500 square foot lot. And I mean, these are like 50s built houses.
Yeah.
I mean, they're these really, really old school houses, dude. I
I
love
think
it,
nowadays everybody wants a brand new house.
right?
Everyone's looking for a brand
Well,
new house.
it actually started growing a lot. It actually started growing a lot from like when I was a kid that I used to go out there to when I go out there now.
Mm-hmm.
I have absolutely, it's like Mexicali, dude. I have absolutely no clue where I'm going. Like I'm completely lost when I pull in. I have to put the GPS on. It used to be really simple.
Yeah.
Over there in Oxnard, it wasn't like these full on exits that we have here. You know, you take this big ramp and you go off.
Yeah.
No, dude, this was like a little turnoff.
Okay.
It was like you're on the freeway, and then next thing you know, there's this like little turnoff, and then you're stopped at the light.
Mm-hmm.
So the freeway kind of felt like you're on a city street, and then you're turning on this
Yeah.
light.
Yeah.
Now it's all kinds of different things. There's all kinds of different plazas. Uh, there's a lot of people that finally realize they're like, oh man, look at this! Like Port Wainemi's there. These
Mm.
are all like beachfront properties. It's like it's basically like Orange County now.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, everybody
Yeah. Orange
just
County's
realized,
ridiculous. I mean, I heard of what people are paying out there for rent. And
yeah.
it's insane, dude. Even
Hmm.
just for a house, just to rent a house or buy a house, it's like crazy.
Which is why we're talking about leaving California.
Yeah.
You know,
That idea's been kicked around a few times, but we're actually trying to come up with ideas as far as like leasing out her grandma, her house, maybe, so she's not alone. So we're
right.
we're trying to kind of mix and match how we could maybe just get one big house for everybody.
Well, that's what we had talked about. If we could find, because especially, and if you go to another state and you're like right outside of like the major cities, like I looked in Georgia, but same thing. My son said there's no way he'll go to Georgia because the humidity is horrible and blah blah blah.
Mm,
But I was like, you know what? A friend of mine, an old coworker of mine, he moved to Atlanta.
mm,
But he was like, dude, he was like, if you move like 30 minutes south of Atlanta, he was like, you're gonna find acres. He was
yeah.
like, and they'll have two houses. I started looking, and one house, well, one area. This was probably like 6 or 7 acres.
Mm,
They had 6 houses on that lot,
wow.
and they were selling all of it all together for I think it was like 500,000.
Okay.
So I was just like, oh man, I was like, I'd take all the kids and each of them can pick one.
Mm,
And one of them, there was I think it was like a two, no, it was a 4 car garage, and they had this big apartment built over it, and it was a 3 bedroom. I think it was something like 1,800 square foot apartment,
mm,
and they said they were breaking it down to be like 4 bedrooms on this 1,800 square feet. But then they showed the pictures and everything, and it was a work in progress. So there's no walls set up. It's just nothing but 2x4s. It's nothing but framing and everything. I was like, dude, you could do this 2 bedroom apartment and have two, master bedrooms.
mm.
And I started telling Alicia, I was like, look, I was like, something like this would be perfect. And she was like, yeah, we could take my mom. And I was like, oh shit. Like, never mind. You know what? I was like, it's fucking horrible. I was like, never mind. I was like, we're not taking your mom.
Yeah.
But that actually was the plan, to figure something out so that way my mother-in-law can come, so we don't leave her behind, because if we leave the state, she basically has nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I asked my mom, since she's living with me now,
Mm-hmm.
and she was like, no. She was like, no way. She was like, fuck no, I'm not leaving California.
Is that what she said?
My mom said, like, she was flat out, like, as soon as I mentioned it, she was like, I'm not leaving.
Mm.
And I was
So
like, why
what's her
not?
thought behind it?
I told her, I was like, why not? I was like, why not? I was like, we can go out there. I was like, we'll get some land. I was like, you'll have your own little, um, mother-in-law housing and
Quarters.
everything. I
Yeah.
was like, we'll have everything set up for you. I was like, you won't live in our house. I was like, we'll get something fabbed up. I was like, we can fucking actually build something, whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, no. She was like, what about your brother and your sisters? I was like, well, I was like, you're retired, so I was like, all of your money can go to flights. So I was like, and then eventually you'll build up the miles and everything. I was like, and then you'll be flying back and forth for free, or every now and again you have to pay a little bit. I was like, that's not a problem. I was like, your
Mm-hmm.
money's your money.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, nope. She's like, no, she's like, because if something happens, I can't just jump in the car and go over there. I was like, technically you can. I was like, it might take you a day or two to get there, but
Technically.
I
Yeah.
was like, technically you can. And she was like, no. She was like, that's fine. She was like, fuck that. She was like, I'll just go. She was like, I'll just go to Mexicali. She was like, I'll just go to my house in Mexicali. I was like, what happens if something happens? I was like, it'll take you, 3, 4, 5 hours to get out here, depending on the
Mm.
border. And she was like, no, it's different. I'm like,
Yeah, if
oh,
anything,
okay.
that's worse there. And it's like those border times are crazy.
So, and it's getting worse. Like, Mexicali used to not be so bad. An hour or 2 hours. There's been days that you'll get like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. You'll be in
Mm.
there for so long that you're like, you know what, I give up. You turn around, you go back.
Yeah. I've had some of those days.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. So going back to the high school years, man. Let's
Well,
let's uh right
even
right
even
back there.
even that, since from elementary up until high school, all of my summers were in Mexico. They were
Hmm.
all in Mexicali. And I mean, once I
What do you
hit,
remember from those years? Like anything that
oh,
stands out
dude,
as
I
the
mean,
first?
back then when we were kids,
What's your first?
there was this apartment building next to my grandma's house,
Hmm.
and it was they abandoned it, so windows were all busted out and everything. Back then, you were allowed to pop fireworks all day, every day, wherever you wanted. So we were out there for Christmas, and we got this big ass bottle rocket, dude, and we light it, and this thing just shoots up maybe about like 20 feet, and then does this whole right hand turn right into the building, and then it goes off, and then it lights everything up.
Jesus.
So Mexico, well, in Mexicali and TJ are the same. Over there, they're not like connected to the city or anything for gas.
Hmm.
They have like big ass propane tanks.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the house, my grandma's house, is next to it, and the house behind it have their propane
Oh
tanks
shit.
all towards that building. So we're like, oh
Uh-uh.
shit.
Yeah. Just kind of
So
waiting for something to happen.
I run inside and I grab the phone and I'm trying to dial 911 in Mexico.
Do they? I was gonna say,
Yeah,
like, do
I
they even
don't.
have
To
911?
the day, I don't even know what the
You don't
emergency
know?
number is. I don't. I still don't
Oh
know.
wow.
But
Just push zero and hope for the operator.
right. So, but I'm running outside. And I'm hitting 911. Nothing's happening. I hang up and hit 911 again. Nothing's happening. And they're like, "What happened? What happened?" And then my cousin goes running in. He throws me off the phone. And then they're like, "What happened? What happened?" And he was like, it caught on fire. It caught on fire. So, the fire department finally shows up, puts everything out. They're spraying the shit out of all of our propane tanks and everything.
Oh shit.
Like after they leave, there was this microwave that they threw outside, and there was a goldfish there, dude. They grabbed the goldfish.
Really?
Yeah, for whatever. So the microwave's laying in the middle of the street,
Hmm.
and I mean this isn't like our cement streets, dude. This is like gravel.
Hmm. Yeah. I know
It's
what you're
like,
talking
so
about.
they have like
Yep.
they throw some kind of like cement or whatever down, and then they just dump gravel on it. So it's just big rocks,
Yeah.
right? And I remember because like I mean we fucked ourselves up on those roads.
Yeah. I remember that. It was just chunks of fucking concrete
Yeah,
and just little bits of rock and
yeah,
just.
no.
I wouldn't even call it gravel. I
I
just
mean,
call it just
yeah,
fucking
for the
rocks.
most part now it has changed. It is a lot in Mexicali has changed, but all the smaller streets now it's still the same. So the fire department throws this microwave out, and then somewhere in there they found this goldfish that wasn't dead, dude. So they go and they grab this thing and they go and put it on top of that microwave. And after they leave and everything calms down, it's probably like 3 o'clock in the morning. We're outside, we're still fucking around. I think I was like 13 or 14,
Mm.
and we had a couple of M80s.
Yeah, I remember those.
So my cousin gets this stupid idea of leaving the fish right there on top of it, light
Hmm.
the M80 and throwing it inside of the microwave.
Hmm.
And then we come back, goldfish was gone. We never found the fucking thing. I
Hmm.
mean, it was all kinds of stupid shit. They kept trying to catch this cat and put one of the fireworks up his ass, but that cat clawed the shit out of my cousin, dude. It was all kinds of stupid shit. Mexico was really good through all those years. So I was 13, 14. I have a half brother that lives out there in Mexico. He's 6 years older than I am.
Okay.
So
Just from your dad's side, or
yeah, this is my dad's son.
okay.
So he's like, hey, he was like, let's go out and party. And I was like, how am I going to go out and party? I'm fucking 13, 14.
Hmm.
He was like, I have this school ID. He was like, and then you'll just use my passport.
Hmm.
And I was like, wait, I was like, do you have that military card that, because like if you can be sponsored by somebody in the military,
Yeah.
so you can have access. He was like, yeah, I have it. I was like, give me that one. So he gives me that. And next thing you know, dude, fucking 13, 14-year-old kid sitting here clubbing, going everywhere, bars, pool halls.
Nice.
And then I hit 14, 15, and, 15, I'm already in high school. And,
The Meow
I
Meow
mean,
Club.
huh?
The Meow Meow Club.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, next thing you know, we're sitting here in strip clubs and everything, and it was, like, really fucking awkward. I'm trying to act like I'm older and everything, sitting here
Oh, just
puffing
like
out a
yeah,
cigarette.
dude.
And then they're like, hey, look at her. I was like, no. I was like, no. I was like, I can't look. They're like, why? Because she'll see me looking at her. Like, it's fucking freaking out.
Huh.
The naked chick in front of me. I was like, no. Yeah, no, it was fucking
That's
fun.
cool. Like, you had those experiences, through those early high school years,
Yeah.
getting out there
Yeah,
and having family show you
by the time I
around.
hit 18 to 21 over here, and they were like, hey, let's go to these clubs. Like, nah, dude, I'm already burned out on clubs.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
experienced that way too young. It was really good.
So moving on through the high school years. So when is the first really serious relationship?
My sophomore year, Yvette.
Sophomore year, huh?
Yeah,
So that
sophomore
was the
year
very
was,
first like real serious, huh?
yeah, actually serious. Yeah, it was Yvette.
Okay. And well, let's dive into that
Oh,
first one.
man.
For those who don't know, Yvette being
Yeah,
your
so
very first baby mama.
Yvette was over,
Or what's the proper enunciation? I don't know. I feel like that's such a
uh,
ghetto term when you think
yeah,
about it that way.
it's the only way everybody knows it. The mother
I
of my
know.
children. She's the mother of my children. They're like,
There you
oh,
go.
your wife?
That's a
No, she's
nice
not.
proper term, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the politically correct term would be the mother of my
I
children.
know. We have
But
like that little bit of hood in us that just never goes away. So it's like when we kind of use like certain, terms, it's like it just comes out like, oh yeah, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, that's proper.
yeah,
But yeah. So go on. I
well,
mean, let's start there.
yeah. So yeah, we met. It was really awkward. Keith introduced us, then we hit it off, and I think I think that like Keith had the idea of him fucking with her,
Mm-hmm.
but me and her hit it off, and
Okay.
then
So it's probably just like, I know how I usually do. It's the whole of friendship, and then, everyone is friends, but,
yeah,
we're
yeah,
friends for a reason, and then like, okay, well, here's one of my other friends, and, sometimes people vibe a little
yeah,
better
and then
than others.
she had this idea from what I remember.
What was the idea?
It was her, and I met her family because Keith took me to her house,
Mm-hmm.
and we were all talking and bullshitting, started meeting everybody, and then they were like, oh, we're going to introduce you to her cousin, and then
Mm-hmm.
never met the cousin. Well, I met the cousin, later,
Is this,
but Erica,
oh, okay. I was thinking the other one. Yadi? Or
Yadira,
Yadi?
yeah, no, she wasn't in the picture at all. Like, I didn't meet her until like it was a while after that I didn't meet her,
Okay.
but
So you met the family.
yeah, well, I mean, they were all there. Me and Keith just walked over there because they lived like down the street and around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
So we went bullshit with them, and then me and her hit
Right
it
in
off,
that
and
Delphinium area, that
it
kind
was
of Indian
Cactus.
cactus,
Yeah, it was
cactus and
Cactus because
Indian area.
he was right off of Cactus on one side of Indian, and she was off of Cactus on the other side of Indian.
Oh, okay.
So just hop, skip, and a jump.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, then we hit it off. That lasted until it was, I think, the summer after my junior year, and she had moved to Anaheim. So we tried out the long distance, and I was like, hey, you know what? I was like, this isn't working out. So we cut it off. That's when I met
Really?
Stephanie.
I didn't know you guys were together and then split up during those high school
Yeah,
years.
no, it wasn't.
I thought it
It
was
was very
always
short
just
lived. The breakup was short lived.
okay.
Same thing. I don't know what happened with her that they ended up not liking being out there, and they moved back. And as soon as they moved back, I was dating Stephanie, and that was probably like the most horrible experience that I
Why?
ever encountered in
With who?
between two girls, dude.
Oh, really?
So I'm dating Stephanie. Everything was awesome. Like, she was a good chick.
Okay.
I felt at that time I felt like I was a little bit out of my league with her.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was just like drooling over her, and I was like a little self conscious about that. She was just
Mm-hmm.
either gonna be like cheating on me, fucking around, or
Mm-hmm.
just like straight up like, hey, like fuck you, dude,
Oh, with
and tell me to
who?
fuck off.
With
Uh,
Stephanie or with
yeah, with
Yvette?
Stephanie.
Okay.
Yeah, with Yvette, there was I mean, with Yvette, that's we can go on and on about that, but that take way too long. But like with Stephanie, everything was great. And then next, Yvette shows back up, and I was just like, all right, like whatever, dude. But I'm sorry, but I'm dating somebody. And then she put a little bit of pressure on, and then I gave into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I can't remember how it was. I think Stephanie was at my house with me,
Mm-hmm.
and then Yvette showed up. And then,
Really?
like, both of them were like, you better choose.
Wow.
And then I took Stephanie, like, into the backyard. And then I took Yvette into the house.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in lesser terms, I basically told Stephanie, I was like,
You're
sorry,
out of the
dude,
house.
but,
She's
yeah, I
in
was
the
like, sorry,
house.
dude,
It's kind
but,
of like,
I was like, you gotta
this is a
go.
metaphor for what
Yeah,
I'm
dude.
doing.
And I mean, she was going, at that time, she was going through some things,
Okay.
and I,
You just didn't
like,
want to deal with it?
no, dude, I was
Just
all
to
for
be.
it. I was all for it.
Oh,
It's
you were
just,
for it?
yeah, dude, I was
Okay.
all for it. It's just, whatever it was that had me stuck to Yvette made me go back.
Hmm.
And, like,
Maybe
even to the
because it was
day,
easier? I
huh?
don't know. Maybe because it was just easier?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it was probably like that whole like first love, puppy love thing
Okay.
that just kept me there with her.
You probably just had that connection right from the beginning.
I thought it was back then, and then like Stephanie with her, it was just fucking awesome, dude.
Hmm. So if it was us, I mean, then, that.
I was still stuck on the puppy love.
Okay.
I still wanted to keep the puppy love,
Yeah.
and I mean, it is what it is. To the day, I still talk to Stephanie,
Mm.
and to the day, I still don't talk to Yvette. So then next you know, you hit my senior year. I think I was a little bit short on credits, so I was like, all right, I'm going to have like full
Yeah.
schedule. I might have to take some RCC classes to get caught
Yeah.
up, you know, everything. Get into the middle of the year, and Yvette comes out pregnant. And I was like,
Oh.
oh shit.
Yeah.
So then I go and start talking to the counselors, and I was like, hey, so like these are the things that are coming up, and I guess somewhere they messed up, and they're like, yeah, they're like, you know what? They're like, you're not going to graduate.
Wow.
And I was like, what do you mean I'm not going to graduate? They're like, yeah, no, you're like fucking like 16 credits short. They're like, so it's impossible for you to graduate. I was like, no, dude. I was like, I think I was at like 7 or 8 credits short, like something
Mm.
like that. Like 7 or 8 classes is all I needed to graduate. I was like,
Yeah.
we talked about this. We drew a map.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, they're like, well, you're wrong and this and that. So I
Yeah.
guess they missed some calculation of my junior year. So I drop out, I think this was like January, February.
Hmm.
It was right at the beginning of the
Of that
second
senior year.
semester. Yeah, it was right at the beginning of the second semester of my senior year. So I drop out, I go get a job and everything. My parents are fucking freaking out. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. I was the last guy to ever expect to have a kid, especially, you know,
Mm.
still in high school.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere towards like the fourth quarter of the senior year, the counselor from the school calls me and she was like, "Hey," she's like, "Where have you been? Why didn't you come to school?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "I talked to these guys and they said that I'm like way far off of graduation." She was like, "No, stupid." She was like, "You finished this." She was like, "All you need is like 5 credits, 4 credits to graduate." And I was like, "All right, well," I was like, "It's too late." I was like, "It's
Hmm.
too late." I was like, "I've already been out the whole third quarter." I was like, "I'm done." I was like, "I'm done."
Yeah.
I was like, "I'm about to have a kid and this and that and blah blah." So
Yeah.
we get into that. I start bouncing around with all kinds of shitty little jobs, and then Adriana comes.
Well, what was the first job that you remember getting?
It was Carl's Jr.
Okay.
It was Carl's Jr. on Cactus. You were
So
at
it
Carl's
was.
Jr. too, right?
I was. I was
The
in College
one
Junior at the one by the mall.
Towngate.
Yeah, by Town Gate.
So yeah,
So you were like what, 17?
I was 17.
And that was your first job there at College Junior.
Yeah, my mom got me the job there. She said that she was gonna have me fucking work with her,
Okay.
and then they were like, "No, you can't work with her." And she sent me over there with her friend and started working there.
Mm-hmm. How long were you there?
It wasn't long. It wasn't very long. As soon as I turned 18, me and Hershey talked.
It's funny too because I remember I got Carl's Jr. job at 17 also
Yeah.
because I had that whole scare with Myra being pregnant. So I was like, well, better get a job. And I started working. But then I remember just uh, missing out on like all the friends going out. And then I come find out she wasn't pregnant. So I was like, I don't need a job. I
Yeah.
just quit. And it was weird. It was like 17. And then when I turned 18, like, oh, now that you're 18, oh, you work longer shifts now. And I was like, I don't want to work here.
Yeah, like no, I work.
Yeah.
Oh no, when I quit, oh man, when I quit Carl's Jr., dude, I left there with a bang. I walked in. I mean, I know I was an asshole kid. I mean, we all know that I had really fucking loud mouth and always talking shit. And so I walk in. I always had a good time with all the customers. That wasn't a problem when I was a
Mm.
kid. It was just the manager. She was just rude. She was
Mm.
just a bitch.
Yeah.
She was like just always fucking moody.
Just miserable.
So
Well,
I
you know what they
showed,
say, miserable or misery loves company.
yeah,
So if they're gonna be miserable, guess what?
yeah.
Then
She
you're
was
gonna
trying
be
to bring
miserable.
everybody into it, but
Yeah.
I was always there having a good time, and I was
Huh.
fucking with
Like
everybody.
young, energetic, got all this
Yeah,
like whole life ahead of you, and over here you're probably like,
all the cooks were Mexican, older Mexican ladies, so I
huh,
was always fucking with them. You know, I was, we're going back and forth in Spanish, and she's like, "What are you telling them?" I was like, "Nothing." I was like, "Look, they're in a good mood. Shut up, leave us the fuck alone."
huh,
And then I remember one day, so I was a cashier. I think I was working drive-through because I still had the headset on, or I was the backup to help push all the orders out, right?
yeah,
And I was like, hey, my shoelace is untied, but I don't want, customers to see me squat down on the floor, fuck with my shoes, then go grab their food and hand it to them. So I was like, I'll be back in a second. I go into the back, and I'm hiding in the back to where nobody could see me, and I kneel down and start tying my shoe. And she comes up and she was like, what the fuck are you doing? Starts yelling at me.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, calm down. And I'm sitting here tying my shoe. I was like, calm down. Look, I'm tying my shoe. She was like, oh, you have to come back here. I was like, yeah. I was like, I don't want customers to see me touching their food and then, like playing on the floor and then stand up and grab their food and hand it to them. I was like, dude, I was like,
mm-hmm,
just fucking nasty. Like, this sink's right here. I'm going to wash my hands. And she was like, you're always making up shit and this and that. And started talking all kinds of shit.
mm-hmm,
And I was like, dude, I was like, you know what? I was like, you need to get laid. And she was like, what? I was like, you need to go home to your husband. You need to tell him to smash the shit out of you and break your fucking back.
huh,
Do something. I was like, get one of these fucking guys because I see homeboy looking at you. I was like, you need to get it in. I was like, leave me the fuck alone. And she was like, fuck you, fuck this. I was like, you know what? I was like, here. Fucking pulled off the shirt, took the headset off,
huh,
gave her the hat. She was like, you're fired. I was like, oh. I was like, all right. I was like, I'm fired. I was like, all right. I was like, now that I'm stripping down and everything, I have no shirt on. I was like, now I'm fired. I was like, fuck you, I'm out. So I left. And I was talking to George. I was talking to Hershey about it, and that's when he was like, "Hey, dude,"
I
he's
don't
like,
think I was
"Well,
ever dramatic. I was just like, dingo.
that was the only one. That was the only one, dude. It's just because of the way she came at me that day.
Yeah,
I
of
wasn't
course. It was like
planning.
one of those like you caught me at a bad time.
Yeah,
It's
like
like,
I wasn't
you know
planning on
what?
quitting or anything, dude.
Fuck you. I don't need this.
The baby wasn't even born yet. Like Adriana wasn't even born yet,
Yeah, so
and
you probably had time to regroup and
yeah,
do
so.
whatever next move you wanted to make.
But I mean, by then I was already 18.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I was 18. But I was like, you know what? I was like, now that I'm 18, that opened up a lot of doors. You
And like,
know,
or let me ask you this one, since like I kind of had a little revelation when I made that little jump from like 17 to 18. What was that your flash? Obviously, because A, you got a baby on the way,
hmm
and B, you're an adult now, 18, even though, through the eyes of the government, we're an adult.
yeah.
But like, what was your revelation then when you did turn 18? Like,
Well, like George Hershey and I were really tight. George and I were really tight back then.
mm-hmm,
Um, once my parents knew that I was gonna have a kid, me and my dad bumped heads. He said it wrong, so I took it wrong.
mm-hmm,
And he was like, "Oh, he was like, he was like, you're gonna be a fucking loser. Because you're gonna be dragging your kids around, your whole life." And back then, me and my dad didn't have the greatest
mm-hmm.
relationship. He was always really strict, being military.
Yeah,
It
you
wasn't over
had a
exaggerated, but
rebellious free soul.
yeah, and yeah, that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to rebel.
Mm-hmm.
And then back then, I mean, it was just this huge chip on my shoulder. Now it's a completely different thing. It'd take a while to explain.
Yeah.
It'd take a lot more than the time that we have right now to explain just the relationship between me and my dad. But I mean, I always held things against him.
Okay.
To the day, like he'll still baby, my older brother more than anything. Ellie, my younger sister, is
Mm-hmm.
the baby of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I always had some kind of
Mm-hmm.
animosity against
Oh, maybe
everything.
the whole middle child syndrome. Is that
Uh,
more kind of what you're getting at?
maybe, but at the same time, I can't even call it the middle child syndrome because I put it on myself.
Okay. Well,
Middle
maybe
child
that's it.
syndrome actually does happen, but it comes from all sides. It comes from the parent side. It comes from the kid side. It comes from the siblings
Yeah.
above and under, and the kid
Mm.
themselves. But I was just always the rebellious kid, and I just found the excuses.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Well, going back
So
to you and George, you were saying.
So when my dad hits me with that, and he was like, "You're gonna be a fucking loser. You'll be dragging him around and this and that," and he was like, "Oh," he was like, "What? You think you guys are gonna live here?" And I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "I'm glad you said that
Mm.
because my friend George over here, they offered me a room. So the baby's born. We move out. We go over there. We last a little bit, and then she moves back to Yvette, and the baby moved back to her family's house, and I stay there with George,
Mm-hmm.
which was like it was bad. I mean,
Was it that house on Indian?
yeah, I think they
Was it
actually still
Indian?
live there. Yeah, down Indian, past the street to go into my house.
Yeah, past JFK.
Yeah, I think they
Mm.
might still live there. I'm not even sure. I haven't talked to them in a while.
Okay.
But like I moved in there and they never asked me for rent, dude. And back
Mm.
then I was an asshole kid.
Yeah.
And like now that I look back, I'm like, dude, like I took so much advantage of them. And I never even fucking realized it.
Mm.
So,
Well, I mean, we get older, we get a little wiser, we kind of
mhm.
look back and we kind of see, what we could have done differently.
And his mom was great, dude.
Yeah.
His mom was so good. She was so good to me. And then like I was around the corner from my house too, so me and Hershey were going back and
Mm.
forth there. Um, I was since Yvette and the baby moved out, I went back to basically being an 18-year-old kid with no
Mm.
responsibility or anything. So we were always fucking around. We are always looking
Yeah.
for something to do. Keith gets into an issue with his dad,
Mm.
and Keith went and I asked Hershey and his mom, so he went and stayed with us for a few months,
Mm-hmm.
and that just fueled more of the whole like fuck around and find out type of deal that
Mm-hmm.
we were living at that time, and it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
It was like, I guess you could call it those college years without the college.
It was no with us. It was actually more of the Fast and the Furious Part One coming out,
Yeah.
so we turned into like the Fast and the Furious series. All of us. We had a neighbor that was there. It was me, Hershey. Keith had a street bike that he was trying to kill himself on at that time.
I remember that.
And then we started a car club, and we are having a lot of fun, dude. It was really good. Like me and Yvette were working things out, and then I picked them up every now and again, and then she ends up pregnant again.
Mm-hmm.
And when she got pregnant again, I started dealing with things a little bit more, but I wasn't really involved. Like I was really,
Mm-hmm.
really bad about it because
Mm-hmm.
fucking stupid 18-year-old kid.
Yeah, yeah. Super young. I get it.
And then once David was born, I remember I went to go pick up the kids, but Yvette was going to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And she opens the door, and Adriana comes walking to me, and I'd never seen her walk.
Wow.
So she comes walking to me, and then once I saw that, dude, that changed
Yeah.
everything.
Your perspective.
Yeah, about them, about my whole life, my whole situation, everything fucking changed. It was
Mm-hmm.
literally like a light switch, just clicked. And I was like, holy fuck, I wasn't here to see my daughter's first steps,
Yeah.
and I already have a second kid. Um, so, I mean, once that happened, a lot of things changed. I was still doing stupid shit, but
Mm-hmm.
I was more involved with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then me and Yvette started trying to work shit out. I think we went back to my mom's house. My dad was already in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
Where so being at that time, this was 2002,
Two. Yeah, I was gonna say right around that
2002,
time because
2003.
I
My
think
dad,
right around that time I was working at Cardinal.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that was right around the time
you're
I
still a
think you
Cardinal.
and Keith kind of joined on. And it's so weird,
I was already out of Cardinal. That's when I went to the dealership. That's when I went to the dealership with Hershey.
okay.
So I was already at the dealership with Hershey. I left Cardinal because I thought I was gonna get fired.
Mm-hmm.
Keith got fired.
Yeah.
Keith got fired for fucking around too much,
Yeah.
and I thought I
That was
was
a
gonna
hard
get
job,
fired,
man. That was like probably
dude.
probably like our equivalent to like maybe those little midtown cities where like working at the mill, like we're that one town has like a mill where everyone works.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what it felt like for us, at
Yeah,
least for me,
having
from my
Jason,
perspective.
all of
Like
us
it seemed
there.
like everybody from like high school, like, well, this is where we got to go to
Yep.
earn a decent wage in this town.
And working with everybody that just got out of jail.
Yeah, or yeah, just like that's
Like,
just hung around too long, or
yeah.
just kind of like is trying to make something of themselves. So,
And I mean, like, that's where they messed
or
up
what was that
too.
other place? The agency,
Uh,
Starcrest, was it?
I can't remember.
I think it was Starcrest.
There's a lot of
It
things
was
I
like
can't
that
remember. Sucks.
warehouse place where everyone would be at. Starcrest.
I
Uh,
I want to say it was Starcrest. I know it was something with Star,
yeah, like
but yeah,
everybody worked there. Yeah,
everyone was working there.
yeah. It was like 2000, 2001,
Hmm.
2002. So everybody was like
But yeah, like 2001 hit, and then 9/11 happened,
9/11 happened.
and then uh,
So
Yvette
much
was
history.
Yvette was pregnant, and then he was born. This happens, and then I get this reality check.
With what?
And then I'm like, dude, I need my dad.
Okay.
And I mean, me and my dad were by then we were already getting a little bit better.
Okay.
We started building a relationship and everything. I named Adriana. Her middle name is after his mom, my grandma.
Hmm.
And my dad just like I mean, I thought I was like head over heels for my daughter. My dad just like completely fucking melted. To the day he's still butter on her.
No, that's good.
So that opened a lot of doors for us.
Yeah.
But we were still bumping heads.
Yeah.
And then once I got this reality check and I was like, okay, now I need to start turning things around. He had me working at Del Taco with him. You know what? Before David even happened,
Hmm.
Adriana was probably like 2 or 3 weeks old. I was working at Del Taco. I was a shift leader,
Hmm.
and my dad's like, "Hey, they're opening this fucking Del Taco in Montana. You're going
Montana.
in Montana, dude. Reddings, Montana. I will
Wow.
never go back,
What do you mean go back? You
dude.
actually went?
I didn't even realize the racism was happening to me,
Really?
and that was my first encounter of racism in my life.
Really? Well, tell me about it. Like,
So Adriana's like 2, maybe 3 weeks old, right? She's newborn. Her face hasn't even formed to be able to say, she resembles mom or dad.
yeah.
So my dad's like, "Hey, you're going," and I was like, "No," I was like, "I'm not going, dude." I was like, "I just had a baby," and he was like, "No, you're going." He was like, "You're gonna get a lot of overtime." He was like, "You're gonna get the fucking per diems." He was like, "You're gonna get this. You're gonna get that." He was like, "A lot of extra money." He was like, "You're gonna go so you can make money,"
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Dude, I'm not gonna make money at Del Taco. Like,
Yeah.
this is a stepping stone right now, so that way I have a fucking check coming in." I was like, before I go to the next job. So he finally gets me to go, and I take off. Right, I'm 18. I My parents don't know that I smoke, so I left my cigarettes.
Hmm.
I didn't want them to accidentally see them. I didn't want them to smell them, anything.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? Once I get out of state, or once while I'm there at LAX, I'm just gonna stop and buy some cigarettes.
Hmm.
And I forget to buy them at LAX because I was in a rush to get to my plane. And once I fly out, we stopped in Salt Lake.
Hmm.
So we get into Utah, and I go running over to the first little store that I find, and I'm this long ass line. They're like, "Hey, you have like 30 minutes between your flights." So I finally get up to this counter, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" I was like, "Let me get a pack of those Marlboro Reds." And she's just like, "Oh, can I see your ID?" I was like, "Fuck yeah!" She's like, "Bam!" Like, look at that. I've
Hmm.
been waiting for 18 years to give you my ID.
There you go.
And then she looks at it. She was like, "Sorry." She was like, "But it's 19 in Utah." And I was
Wow.
like, "Wait, what the fuck?" And she was just like, "Yeah, sorry." She's like, "Can't tell you anything." I was like, "Wait a minute." I was like, "I've been buying cigarettes for like my uncles in Mexico since I was like 10. I was
Yeah.
like, I waited for 18 years to buy them legally. I was like, now you're telling me I have to wait another fucking year because I'm over here in Utah?" I was like, "What the fuck?" So I get upset. I go over to the smoking area and I'm sitting there. I'm like, "Dude, I might as well just get the second hand at least." Homeboy walks in. Dude looks about my age, and I was like, "What's up, man? Buy a cigarette off of you?" And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." He was like, "Yeah." He was like, "How much you gonna buy it for?" I was like, "I don't care, man." I was like, "I have $1." I was like, "I don't have change." Well, I'll give you $1 for a cigarette. He was like, "All right." He pulls a cigarette out and he looks at me. He was like, "How old are you?" I was like, "Really, dude?"
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh." He was like, "Sorry, man." He's like, "I can't sell you this cigarette." I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me right
Really?
now?" I was like, "Are you fucking kidding?" I was like, "Where the fuck am I?" And I flip out, dude.
Yeah.
So he's just like, "Yeah, no." He's like, "Sorry." He was like, "I can't contribute to a minor." I was like, "Dude," I was like, I'm 18. I'm from
Yeah.
California.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, sorry. I'm from Utah. He was like, I can't sell you the cigarette. I was like, well, fuck you then.
Wow.
So I got all butthurt and shit, and I could just go over there, and by the time I get over there, they're already.
Okay, so you're going through the whole cigarette story, but how about where's that racism coming
So,
up?
well, no, we'll get to this. Watch.
Yeah.
So then I jump on my plane. We fly out to Montana. I can't remember the name of the city that we landed in.
Mm-hmm.
And we come out, and there's another little shop.
Mm-hmm.
We're waiting for our ride to show up because I think it was like 5 or 6 of us that showed up from Del Taco to go open the store. And I walk up to this counter, and it's a white dude, and he's looking at me, and I was like, "Hey, can I get some cigarettes?" And he's just staring at me, and he turns around and he walks off.
Really?
And I was like, "Okay." And I'm turning around, and this was a really small airport because from Salt Lake over to Montana, it was a small plane. It wasn't a full size fucking plane. So I'm sitting here like, all right, what just happened? I'm looking around. You're like, what the fuck just happened? So next thing you know, this van shows up. We all grab our shit. It was me, a black dude, and it was 3 or 4. It was this lesbian chick. She was fucking awesome, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was another dude and a chick, and the 3 of them were white. And it was 5 of us, and the 6th one was the boss, and he was already there, and another white dude. So we all get into this van. And the driver's like, "Hey, can the 2 of you sit in the back?"
Mm-hmm.
And we're like, "Okay." He's like, "Oh, he's like, let the girl sit over here in the front."
Mm-hmm.
I was like, "All right, whatever." Like the way he said it, the way he pitched it, it sold me. So I jumped in the back. Then we go into town. He was like, "You guys need to stop anywhere, anything like that, and this and that." So we stopped at this gas station. I jump out. I go get a bunch of snacks, a couple of sodas, and everything. And that chick, she walks up and she was like, "Hey," she was like, "Do you want anything extra?" And I was like, "Hey," I was like, "How old do you have to be to get cigarettes here?" He was like, 19. I was like, "Fuck me, dude." I was like, "What the fuck? I waited for 18 years to buy them legally. Now these guys are telling me you need a dick." So she's just like, "No." She's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, "You know what?" And I handed her $20. And I was like, "Give me a pack of cigarettes and everything." She was like, "Is there anything else?" And that's when those the fucking, what was it, tequila? It was like tequila beer, tequila and beer.
Really?
It was a beer that hit really hard back then, dude.
I don't remember
It was called tequila.
Okay.
And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Give me a 6 pack of that." She was like, "That's it?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like, "Just a 6 pack." So she ends up buying me a 12 pack, and she buys me the cigarettes. And when I go to pay for my shit, same shit. Same thing happens again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "How much is that?" And throw all my shit there. And he just looks at me, and then he walks off. I was like, "What the fuck?"
Mm-hmm.
Next thing you know, there was a black dude that worked there, and he walks up to the counter and everything. He was like, "Hey, man, let me ring you up." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Is there something wrong?" And he was like, "Nah." He's like, "Nah, don't worry about him. He went on break." I was like, "All right." And
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
I'm still completely blind about it, dude.
Yeah.
Like 100%, like, don't even know what's going on. So we go to the hotel, and next thing you know, the same lesbian chick, she was like, "Hey," she was like, why don't you guys just wait out here?" I was like, "All right, whatever." Like, I'll wait out here, and I'm smoking a cigarette and everything, and we're bullshitting. And she's like, "All right, here are your guys' room numbers and this and that, and whoop de whoop." So we go in, and we're getting like that dirty stink eye, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "All right, is it because we're like Californians, or what the fuck's going on? Like, what are we doing wrong?
Yeah, that'd be my first thought. I'd be like, was it just because we give off that California
Yeah,
vibe?
so
Did I
that's what
show up with shorts?
Yeah, that's what I figured, dude.
I have a little bit of a tan on me.
Right? And I'm saying, dude, bro. And
Lingo, body language, everything. Yeah.
so I was fine about it. We go to our room. She comes over to the room and she was like, "Hey," she's like, "I bought a 12 pack so that way, we can have a few beers." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, fuck yeah." I was like, "Come on in." So she comes into the room, we're talking, we're bullshitting. She was like, "Let's go outside so we can go smoke real quick." We go outside, we're smoking a cigarette, and you see this bus pull up, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember what like college it was, but it was a softball team.
Mm-hmm.
So we're like, "Oh shit!" And she's
Okay.
looking like, I mean, she was looking hard.
Yeah.
She was just like, "Oh, this softball bitches with those like thunder thighs and shit, like stomping around." She's like, "I gotta see me one of those." So they go around the building. She was like, "Oh," she's like, "We can see them from your room." So we go running back into the hotel. We go to the room, and like we're like sitting here like yelling at these chicks,
Mm-hmm.
And then she like pops the screen out and everything. She's like, "Hey, right here." She's like, "Come on." She's like, "Come over." And they're like, "No, no, we're good." They told us to fuck off, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is like 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, we go into the fucking Del Taco, and it was like setting everything up. We're talking to everybody, and this dude just like keeps looking at me, but he was Indian.
Okay.
He was Native American. Sorry, politically incorrect. He's Native American.
Well, when you think Indian, it could go one of two ways. It go,
Yeah, Indian, or Native
India
American Indian.
or
So,
Indiana, yeah, or yeah, back Middle East India
hmm
or Native American India.
so he's Native American, and he was like, "What's up, man?" I was like, "How you doing?" And he was like, "Dude, it's so good to see you here, man." He was like, "Now I don't feel out of place," and I was like, "Okay." He was like,
Mm.
"Yeah, he's like, because we gotta stick together, man." He was like, "It's crazy out here."
What, you thought like you were Indian too?
Yeah, and I was like, "Okay." I was like, "Are you Mexican?" He was like, "No." He was like, "I'm Indian." I was like, "All right." I was like, "But," I was like, "What do you mean though?" He was, "Oh," "I'll tell you about it later. Don't think anything of it." So all that goes down. The next day, we actually opened the store, right? People are coming in, they're looking at Del Taco's menu and everything, and this one lady's sitting there, and she's like, she's like, what's a quest, what is that?" I was like, "Oh, it's a quesadilla." And she was like, "He spoke Spanish." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "What is that?" I was like, "A burrito." And she was like, "Uh-huh." She was like, "But how do you say it?" "Burrito." And she was like, "And what else is there?" I was like, "Well, ma'am, the menu's right there." And she was like, she's like, "What's the thing that you said?" I was like, "What, the quesadilla?" And she was like, "Yeah, that one." See, I told you. And I was like, "All right." I was like, "All right, this is getting fucking weird." I was like, "Okay." I was like, "It's a tortilla with cheese. That's it."
Wow.
So she was like, "All right." And next thing it starts
Well,
getting
is this like the
awkward.
first and only Del Taco they've ever opened over there?
Back then, yeah. Back then it was
Really?
the only one.
Wow.
I think I want to say it was probably the first one opened out of state. It was the first one opened out of state back then. And then obviously Caesar ended up moving to Florida for Del Taco when they opened up a couple of stores
Okay.
out there.
Yeah, I remember that.
So like I don't think anything of it, and I was just like, you know what, I was like, that was a little awkward and everything. I was like, I'm just gonna stay over here and make sure that the cooks are doing everything right and blah blah. So we get past that first day, or the first day of being opened. I think it's what, the third night that I'm
Mm.
there. We go out to eat, and the guy that's our manager, supervisor, whatever you want to call him, he's like, "Hey," he was like, "I'm gonna take you guys out to eat." I was like, "All right, dude." I was like, "Let's go, man." And he was like, "Well," he was like, "There's no Mexican restaurants out here." I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, "We're in this hillbilly town with nothing but cows everywhere."
Yeah.
A couple of the fucking employees actually told me that they really do go cow tipping. I thought that was just a fucking joke off of like movies and comedians. But I was like, no. I was like, dude. I was like, a nice, good, like 10-ounce steak sounds really fucking nice right now.
Yeah.
So we go out to this restaurant. First, we went to the hotel, got changed and cleaned up and everything. We go to this restaurant, right? And then once we get to the restaurant, I think he was already there, or he pulled up in his own car. We all jump out and we see our boss. This guy has like a white t-shirt on. He has a blue jean vest on. Has all these weird patches. I'm not thinking anything of it. I see this anarchy patch, and I was like, "Oh, I've seen all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like whatever." And then we go and sit down, and the thing that I haven't seen is like the like super like racist tattoos and shit, right?
Mm-hmm. Which
This
are
dude,
what?
this dude shows up. He has all these earrings on and shit. He's looking like fucking completely different person.
Mm-hmm.
And then next thing you know, he turns his head, and you see like right at the bottom of his neck on his right side that it's two lightning bolts.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right. I was like, no fucking clue what that is. And I start seeing like right at his short sleeve, because it's shorter than his work shirt. That all these tattoos come out, and they look like straight jailbird tattoos. And then we sit down, and I'm going like towards the left side of him, and the same chick grabs me, and she's like, "No," she's like, "Sit on that side," and pushes me to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And then she tells the other dude, she's like, "Why don't both of you guys sit over there on his right side?"
Yeah.
The other dude starts looking at him, and he's getting more and more mad, and I have no clue what's going on, dude. I'm like completely like blind. I don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on, but he
Seems
saw the
oblivious.
tattoo on the neck.
Yeah.
And then I found out later on that like he kept like trying to pull up his sleeve on his left arm because he had a
Purposely.
swastika on his left shoulder,
Okay.
and like he was like trying to show us. So then I was like, okay, well, later on I understood because I mean, me and him, we didn't talk, we had no conversation. It was just like, go over there.
Yeah.
Are you busy? Like very very short, you know,
Yeah.
three to six words or less.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was just the two fucking letter okay.
Mm.
So he would not conversate with me at all. And I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, all right, dude, I'm this 18-year-old fucking kid, and you have to deal with me, whatever. I was like, all right, whatever. Like, I'll get out of the way.
Mm.
So we go back to the hotel after that. I remember I got to the room, I called Yvette, and I was like, how's the baby, the snap, blah, blah. Um, and then I hang up. This is probably like 11 o'clock out there, so it was like 9 o'clock out here,
Mm-hmm.
and I pass out. Like at midnight, between midnight and 1, dude, somebody's pounding at my door. And I was like, what the fuck's going on? Get up and I open the door, and the guy's like, hey, he was like, we just had a couple of noise complaints from you. He was like, I was like, what are you talking about? He was like, yeah, he was like, the both rooms next to you and the room above you, they're all complaining about your noise. So I started turning on the lights. I was like, dude, I was like, there's nobody here. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
So this guy was just like, well, look, man, and he starts talking all this shit. I
Yeah.
was like, look, dude, I was like, if you can smell it, dude, I was like, we're here to open that shitty Del Taco down the street. I was like, I've worked, I think it was like a 14-hour day, and then we went and still fucking ate. I was like, I just got to my room. I was like, I just want to sleep, dude, because I got to be up at 6 to be out of here by like 6:30. I was like, get the fuck on, dude. So he was like, if we get another noise complaint, there's going to be some problems, blah, blah. Don't think anything of it. So I go back to work. I try
Mm.
to talk to my boss about it, and
Yeah.
he was just like, well, he was like, you should keep it down.
Wow. They didn't even have your back about it. Just
And
you
I
guys
was
have your
like, all
back.
right. I was like, you don't understand. We went back to the hotel after we were done. I'm 18. I can't even fucking buy cigarettes here. What the fuck would I have done? And he just had nothing of it and just fucking walked off. So homegirl walks up and she starts asking me, and I'm telling her, and she's just like, yeah. She's like, you know what? She's like, just we'll talk about it after work. Another 14-hour day, and I'm just burnt to shit. And I was like, you know what? I just want to get to the room and knock out. Get back to the room, call Yvette again, and fucking hang up. I'm out by like maybe 8 o'clock, dude. Next thing you know, 10 or 11 o'clock hits, I'm pounding on the door again. We told you yesterday, and he starts fucking yelling at me. He was like, you're out. He was like, get out. He was like, grab your shit, get out.
Wow.
So he takes me downstairs. This manager chick walks up, and she's sitting here like, oh, you know, well, there were these complaints. I was like, who's complaining? I was like, the people that I have on both sides of me are working with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, who else is complaining? And then we started talking about it, and I finally convinced her to let me stay. I was like, dude, I was like, where am I going to find a hotel room tonight? Like, what am I going to do? I was like, I'd have to get my boss to come down. I was like, he's not answering his phone.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you keep calling the room. And I was like, where am I supposed to go? She's like, fine, we're going to put you on the complete opposite side. So I wake up in the morning as I'm walking out. She's like, hey, she's like, we had another noise complaint. She's like, so don't come back. She's like, go ahead and grab your things and you can leave now. And still, dude,
Wow.
completely oblivious.
Wow.
So I grab all my shit, and then I get out to the van, and homeboy's there, and he's like, hey, he was like, you're fucking embarrassing me, and starts yelling at me. I
Wow.
was like, what are you doing here at the hotel, dude? If you're not staying at this hotel, I was like, what are you doing here? He goes, oh, they called me. I was like, oh, so the hotel called you? Like as if like you're my dad or something?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, he was like, you know, now I have to deal with this. He was like, now I'm gonna have to move you across the street because there was another hotel.
Yeah.
I go over there to that hotel. This is like what, the fifth night? I was supposed to be there for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So the fifth, maybe the sixth night, and I'm at that hotel. Same shit again, dude. Same
Wow.
exact fucking thing again. Next thing you know, he was like, you know what? He was like, I'm done dealing with you. He was like, I'm sending your ass home. Next thing you know, the other dude and the lesbian chick, they were like, you know what? They're like, we're gonna go home too. And he was like, what are you guys leaving for? The black dude was just like, you know what? He was like, I'm done. He was like, I'm done. He was like, they're doing all right. He was like, the rest of you guys can handle this. He was like, I'm done. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, you know what? I was like, we're being sent home early. He was like, hey, what happened? And he was like, I got a phone call. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I don't know what happened, Dad. I was like, first something about noise complaints. I was like, then I got kicked out of this hotel. I was like, I go across the street, and the same fucking night, they said that supposedly I had noise complaints. He was like, well, what the fuck were you doing? I was like, what do you mean, what was I doing, dude? I was
Yeah.
like, I'm calling to see how my daughter's doing, then I go to sleep. I was like, we're working all fucking day. So he was like, all right, I'll pick you guys up. He was like, I'll pick all of you guys up. And I want to say, I think we flew into Ontario, and then we had to drive all the way out to Palm Springs to drop them off.
Mm-hmm.
So we get in the car, and my dad just fucking starts firing off to yelling at me. And then next thing you know, she was like, hey, she was like, wait. She was like, shut up. She was like, shut up, because she was in the back seat with me.
Yeah.
So she reaches out and grabs my dad from the shoulder. She's like, hold on. She's like, don't yell at him yet. She was like, we'll talk about it later when he's not in the car. I was like, I didn't do anything. I just kept arguing. I didn't do anything. Again, still completely 100% oblivious. And then homeboy sitting in the front with my dad, and he looks over at him. He was like, hey, he was like, there's a reason why the three of us came home and not the rest of them. And then he was like, what happened? He was like, well, he was like, they tried to kick me out. He was like, they tried to kick me out of the hotel too, and this and that, blah, blah. And then next, it clicked for my dad, and I still didn't understand, dude. Mm-hmm. Still didn't even fucking see it. So then we dropped them off, and we had that long ass drive from Thousand Palms.
Yeah.
We dropped one off in Palm Springs, the other one in Thousand Palms, and we had to drive back to Moreno Valley. So he was like, did you say anything to him? I was like, no. I was like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then he was like, did you make the complaint about the lightning bolts? I was like, what fucking, what are you talking about? He was like, the tattoos that he had. He was like the Nazi tattoo. He was like the lightning bolts. He was like, that's all that, fucking racist Nazi KKK shit. And I was like, dude, I thought that was in the fucking movies. I thought they like made something up about the lightning bolts. I didn't fucking know.
No, that's the SS symbol.
Yeah. I didn't fucking know. So he was like, "What do you think?" He was like, "Was there anybody except for white people that were going to your door or when they told you to get out from both hotels?" I was like, "No." He was like, "Why did they think that you're Mexican at the hotel?" And I was like, "You know what?" I was like, "One of the ladies that worked at the first hotel was the one that freaked out when I said quesadilla at fucking Del Taco." Mm-hmm. Aside from that, I mean, back then, dude, I didn't get much sun, so I looked white as fuck.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And I was clean shaved, no beard, no nothing. And then all hell broke loose after that. And he was like, yeah. He was like, well, that's what happens when you go to a racist state. And I was like, shut the fuck up. I didn't even fucking see it, dude. Like completely, we live in California, it's so it's so
a big
rare
mixed batch.
Yeah, it's so rare to see racism.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Honestly, I don't think I've ever had anything like that.
Oh, I had
my end.
The second one was
so. Again, it's even funny for you because obviously you don't look Mexicano like other Mexicanos. That's right, indigenous face. The ones that you could tell like, oh yeah, he's from Oaxaca or something. That's a fucking Mexican right there. Yeah, I mean we're pretty fair skinned. We're like, I even had somebody tell me I looked Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you look Asian.
Somebody always says like fucking Argentina or fucking random ass.
Another person said I looked Italian. Mm-hmm. I was like, really? Did you not see my face?
See, that's what Alicia told me. She was like, oh, if we moved to Tennessee, just say you're Italian. I was like, no. I was like, no.
But yeah, no, I can honestly, I've never dealt with it. Maybe as a kid, just like little neighbors, the kids are teasing each other over stupid things.
Oh, no, man, no.
That's it. But no, not in person. No, it's like I've always just been very nice and polite, and I've never had that moment. There's been like little jokes thrown where I've kind of like looked at them, kind of like really? No. Like I'm on my right here. Like they'll throw like a little like let's go to Home Depot and grab us up a couple. And the guy's like super white, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like it just leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
No, I got a couple of them. There was a Vietnamese lady when we moved to Hemet, a Vietnamese lady, and she fired off. She was like, "Go back to Mexico," and I mean, she had like really broken English. So it was 2002.
2002.
Life perspectives changed. And I was sitting here.
Baby number 2 already on the way, or baby number
He was already born.
Mm-hmm.
And then Adriana walked up to me, and I was like, oh shit, I was completely lost. And I was so desperate, so desperate to be able to talk to my dad.
Mm-hmm.
This was what cell phones were barely breaking out.
Yeah, I remember like it was right around 2001 or 2 getting my first cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird too because like it was like I think I was still like 18 or 19. Um, but yeah, I won't go into me.
No,
I don't
no,
want
no,
to
it's
make it
fine.
about me, so I keep
No, it's fine. I
deterring
mean, like,
or
because
deterring. Go
by
ahead.
2002, this was towards the end of 2002, getting to 2003. I think that's when like
Mm-hmm.
HTC was already out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the nicer Nokias were out.
Yep.
They already had cameras on them, and I think it was Sprint that was saying that they were going to have video chats.
Mm-hmm. Well, that
So,
was until like 2007 or 6 actually, because I
right.
remember it was until like camera phones were 2004. I want to say 2003.
Yeah, it was like 2003.
Those were like camera phones were like super grainy.
Cause no,
Uh,
when my dad
but the
came back
video
from
chats
Iraq,
were like 2007, 2008.
yeah. So, but
Mm,
Sprint was saying that they were trying to bust out the video chats, right?
okay.
So my dad had brought home a on his first tour. He had brought home this Nokia, I don't know what numbers, and it was a camera phone.
Hmm.
So then once I saw it here, and I mean it had Iraqi letters on it and everything,
Hmm.
plus regular letters, and I mean it blew me away. So I thought it was amazing.
Hmm.
So I had that phone and it worked, and then Sprint was saying that they were going to start doing video chats.
Hmm.
And I was like, dude, I don't know how this is going to work because there was no front facing camera back then. It was just a back camera.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, this is perfect. And then Singular busted out. And Singular came out with this really, really nice Nokia. And I was like, dude, I'm getting that phone because now Singular is also starting to say that they're going to do video chats. I was so desperate to talk to my dad because I was like, dude, I was like, now that I'm changing perspectives,
Hmm.
I need my dad in my life. And I didn't have it. So it was really, really hard times. I was trying to figure myself out. Everything was all upside down. Um, I was trying to do the best that I could. I was working
Hmm.
the dealership for a while, and then I remember I was a porter. I was a porter at the dealership,
Okay.
and then after that,
How funny we share similar jobs because I
yeah,
did the whole lot porter detailer too. So
yeah. I think we told you about it. I think me and Hershey told you about it,
yeah.
and then
I
you were like,
remember
"All
just
right,
right after I quit Cardinal and I needed a job. My brother
mm-hmm.
worked at the dealership. That was 2003.
Yeah." And you were going out to San Bernardino, right?
San Bernardino.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I was working. That's where I met Allie.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother got me that job there, and you know, not
Yeah,
about
because
me.
I
Keep going
remember.
back to you.
No, I remember we talked about it,
Yeah.
and we were telling you how like awesome it was because back then, I mean, when we were at the dealership, dude, we
Yeah.
totally ripped them off. Like,
Well, you could get away with quite a few things. You could drive. You could gas. You could just
no, 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 even worse, man, even worse.
even worse.
Me
Okay,
and
you tell me.
me and George were the only two porters for Toyota. It was Marina Valley Megastore, right?
Yeah.
I think back then it was Honda, Hyundai, Toyota, and Dodge.
Yeah.
And again, dude, like, we're 19, we're fucking Rugrat kids. We
Hmm.
didn't know what the fuck we were doing. I think Hershey might have been 20. And we're the only two for Toyota. So we're both scheduled, like we'd overlap each other and everything, but
Hmm.
one would open, one would close.
Hmm.
Back then, there were still time cards. So you'd go and stamp it.
Hmm.
So one would show up, we'd stamp both of the cards, and the other one would close and stamp both of the cards. Dude, there was a couple of days that we were there for like 16 hours. You know how the dealerships work, that if they have a
Yeah.
customer, if the store closes at 8 and they have a customer and the customer wants to stay until midnight until you
Yep.
close that deal, you never kick them out.
Yep.
So we'd be there, one of us would be there until closing hours and we'd clock each other out.
Hmm.
Thinking
But
about it
no one
too.
picked up on that. No one.
No,
How are
no,
you both?
nobody ever did, dude.
How are you both?
That's why it was so good.
Wow.
So there was
I tried pulling that a couple times. Now that you mention it, like I do remember the whole time card thing, and yeah, that was kind of one of those like, hey, I'm gonna take off early. Can you punch me out? I'm gonna leave early, but punch me out like at my normal time. Well, as far as I ever went. But
oh
I,
no,
I
we
think
got
somebody caught on to it and then was like, oh, like you guys are working your hours, or
oh we
where were
had
you guys at? Yeah,
insane amount of overtime
yeah.
hours, dude. It was
Well, I
it
bet you
was
guys had more liberties. Yeah.
yeah, but it was. I mean, I actually did enjoy it.
Hmm.
I actually ended up like messing up. I shouldn't have gotten out of that. I went into sales.
Yeah.
Like I went into sales. There was one day that I remember I was driving the cars around so much and moving them around. That was when the S.2000 came out, showed up on the lot, and they sent us to go and move it too.
Hmm.
I think Hershey might have blown out the motor.
Really?
I can't remember if it was him or me, but um, they sent it
Was it a
from
brand new
Honda.
car?
Yeah, brand new car. You're straight off the truck.
How do you blow it up?
Uh, the
Just
no
redlining it?
Honda didn't put any oil in it,
Oh.
so we weren't gassing there. We had to go two exits down to get to Paris Boulevard, Paris and Sunnymead, and we'd go to that Shell station
Hmm.
where the Popeyes chicken is at,
Yeah.
and no oil. But I mean, we were sitting here just going, dude. It was Fast and Furious years.
Yep.
So we were trying to go as fast as we could. And I was like, dude, back then, I mean, I had that 9080 clips, 9090 clips.
Yeah, I remember that car.
I love that car, man.
Well, it was like when Fast and Furious did come out,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, the Eclipse. I was like, yeah, man, I wanted to get an Eclipse
Dude, it
too.
was so good. That car was
Those
so good
those
to me.
are probably classics now to these kids.
Dude, now, I mean, I had three of them in total. I had three of them. I had
Mm.
two silver ones and a black one. But like we were on our way back, the car took a shit. It fucking broke down. You heard something snap and the car locked up, and we're calling the dealership like, hey, come and pick us up. And they flipped out on us, dude. They completely like lost their shit on us. All right,
Wow.
what happened? This and that. And then next thing you know, they get it into the shop. The mechanics go and look. They're like, hey, it's not their fault. There's no oil in this car. There's zero oil in this car. And it was the one and only S2000 that was on the lot with
Jesus.
a blown motor. So it was good times.
Yeah.
Somebody convinced me to go into sales. I
Hmm.
remember just because I was driving the cars around so much. There was a customer that had asked something about one of the cars, and the salesman had no clue.
Mm.
So I was like, "Oh yeah," and then I got all into it. I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like, reinforced doors, this and that, blah blah blah. And he was like, "All right, thanks." And I turned around and walked off. So after the customer left, the salesman comes up to me and he tells me, he's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He was like, "Why don't you come into sales?" And then I gave in.
Hmm.
And then this guy was cool as shit, dude. He went and signed, co-signed for both me and Hershey to get like full systems, dude.
Yeah.
We had like 312s. We were living it up.
Hmm.
I was still, doing the conversion into like seriously being a father and
Yeah.
still trying to fuck around and everything. I had the show car. Um, Next thing you know, Caesar, my brother, starts dating this chick,
Mm.
and I start realizing that I'm like doing George wrong, and then I'm in sales and blah blah blah. So I move out of his house.
Hmm.
Caesar moves in with George, and I go live with another friend.
Really? I didn't know that Caesar went to go live with them.
Yeah, Caesar and his ex lived with them. I can't remember how long it lasted,
Hmm.
but it wasn't that long. Eventually, me and Caesar ended up getting an apartment together,
Hmm.
and I was still in that Eclipse full
Hmm.
system, and I was living in Edgemont on Adrian Street. It's like the to the day, it's probably still the worst area to live in Marina
Wait,
Valley.
wasn't okay? Like I gotta like find the map here just because this is my curiosity, of course.
So it's what Frederick and Alessandro.
Uh,
It's Frederick and Alessandro.
Alessandro, Frederick, but it's also what?
You know those apartments that you could see on Frederick, right there off the corner
Yeah,
of Alessandro. Oh, look at you, dude! It was all fancy and shit. What is this, Google Earth?
yeah. So this would
Fucking
be
fancy.
um, Alessandro.
Dude, Go ahead.
Wouldn't it be over here? Because this
Yeah,
is
yeah. So
Alessandro.
right there,
This
right
is
there. See that?
Frederick.
See, it says Adrian Avenue.
Yeah, yeah. I remember you
So
living there.
all that whole block
All
right there,
this
Adrian
Pride
Avenue,
Street.
Pride. What is that? Alleys.
Yeah,
So that whole block all the way around is nothing but like
yeah.
straight, like Section 8. What the fuck?
Yeah, and for those that can't see, we're looking up at a map, so I know this is all audio, no
But I
visual.
mean, those were that was even to the day, dude. I had to drive through there recently for work,
Hmm.
and I was like, yeah, I was there. I'm gonna
I
stop here.
remember visiting you one time. I
Mm-hmm.
remember it was like the kids were like super little.
Yeah,
I
they're
think that was
yeah.
probably like the one time that or the first time I remember meeting them. Because I know you were like working and busy, and I was working and busy, and I was like, yeah, man, it's been a while since we hung out. I think the last couple times you were still living at Hershey's, and then yeah, then you lived over here. So yeah, it was a
Yeah, I
few
lived with
years.
Hershey, and then I went and lived with a friend named Sergio,
Hmm.
and then that was pretty short lived. And I went back to my mom's house until me and Caesar decided to get that apartment.
Yeah,
And then when we
yeah.
moved in there, a couple weeks into there, uh, Keith and Tim went over there, and I want to say no, Mike didn't go.
Hmm.
It was Keith and Tim and somebody else,
Hmm.
and we're like stupid drunk. I think I was like more alcohol than anything because me and Eva had all kinds of problems.
Hmm.
So I was like 130 pounds of nothing but
Hmm.
alcohol, and I didn't know any of my neighbors, and we lived in a really really fucked up area, right?
Hmm.
So it was either you're like gangster black or you're illegal Mexican.
Hmm.
So my little, what was it, 4 apartment complex that I was in was nothing but illegal Mexican and us,
Hmm.
which Cedar's ex girlfriend was illegal. And then the one that we faced towards was same thing, nothing but Mexican. The ones behind me though that were facing each other was just like hardcore like gangster black. Including the night that we moved in, dude, there's gunshots.
Hmm.
And every night after that there was gunshots.
Hmm.
So I was telling Keith, I was like, hey dude, I was like, let me borrow one of your shotguns and everything, like what if something happens? I just want to have something. He was like, dude, I can't. So this night we're drunk, and Tim showed up with a 12 pack of Budweiser.
Okay.
So
Well,
I
I heard
had,
12. I was gonna say like a 12 gauge.
yeah, no, it was a 12 pack of
Okay, a 12 pack
Budweiser, dude. He
of
shows up
what?
with this 12 pack of Budweiser, and I always
Okay,
had, back then I was only drinking
Corona.
Corona. So I had like 4 cases of Corona, and he brought these Budweisers, and we started drinking. We're drinking nothing but Coronas.
Hmm.
So I'm drunk. The kids had just fallen asleep. We're all sitting out there. We had my neighbor come over. We're bullshitting and everything. I was like, you know what? I was like, how long have you guys lived here? And they were like, oh, we've been here for a couple years. I was like, how many times have you talked to gangsters over here? He's like, fuck that, dude. Like, they're shooting each other and shit. Like, we don't talk to them.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna go talk to them. And they're like, no, no, no. Even Tim was like, dude, he was like,
Hmm.
don't fucking go over there. They're gonna beat the fuck out of you. He was like, when we pulled up, he was a few hours ago when we pulled up, there was like 15, 20 of those motherfuckers.
Yep.
So I was like, fuck this. I was like, you gonna drink that? And he was like, no. He was like, I got your Coronas. He was like, I bought this shit because it was cheap. So I grabbed the fucking beer,
Hmm.
and I started walking out the gate, and Keith was like, fuck this, I'm going with you. He was like, you're gonna die if you go by yourself. So we go over there, and as soon as I open this gate, dude, like you just see all of them just fucking whip their heads over, and they see me coming in, and they all just start fucking rushing us. So they're all talking shit. They're running their mouths. They're like, what the fuck you want to do? Where are you from? This and that. I was like, dude, I'm your fucking neighbor, man. And they're like, what? They're like, where the fuck you from? I was like, I'm from next door, dude.
Hmm.
They're like, what the fuck you doing over here? Like, want to see if you guys want to have a beer. And all of a sudden they snatched the beer out of our hands. They started fucking chugging away. And they were like super chill, dude.
Hmm.
So they started asking, they're like, well, what the fuck do you want? They're like, why'd you come over here? Like, nothing, man. Like, I got, my brother, his chick and her kid, me and my family. Like, if I go to work, like, I don't want to be fucking worried about it.
Hmm.
Like, as long as you guys, like, help me out over here and keep an eye on the kids. I was like, as long as I'm drinking and shit. I was like, we have a little grill over there. I'm always fucking barbecuing. Like, I'll have you guys get fucked up with me as long as I'm over there drinking, just keeping an eye on the kids. So they were cool about it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I think like 5 or 6 months into it, I mean, I was always like really quiet about pulling the Eclipse into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because I was like, dude, it's a fucked up neighborhood. My car's going to get fucking ripped off, like, really fast. So I was really tight with the neighbors in my complex because we shared this white-ass garage.
Yeah.
And then I got tight with them because they were always in the alley, because there's an alley that goes in between all those apartments.
Yep. I remember.
So next thing I know, I get home like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
It was this little alley.
Yeah. So that one right there with the pink roof, with that really pink-ass roof,
Yep.
was the one that I was in.
Really?
No, in the opposite corner.
Oh, this one.
No, higher. Higher in the middle.
This way?
See that white roof?
This one?
The one right above it.
The one right above it?
Yeah. The fifth building.
The fifth building. So what's this
That.
way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, no. I was in the white one. They were in the pink one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was in that one. That corner one right there with the chimney?
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Google Earth.
That's where I was at.
Didn't even go there. I was going to say, hey, Google Earth. Nope. Google Earth wasn't even there.
So I was with the one in the chimney, and then we went to the one right there next door to the left.
Mm-hmm.
And that tree, I remember that tree is where they were pushing us to.
Yeah. Like Google said, like, nope, we're going to be over here.
Yeah. Google was like, fuck you, I'm not even going to show you that this line is blue. So 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, somebody's banging on my window, and I was like, oh shit. And I had my dad's rifle at the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I go and jump into the closet, and I just like, I move the curtain, and I'm pointing it straight out. They're like, hey, what the fuck? And I was like, oh, dude, I was like, scared the fuck out of me. What happened?
What was it?
They're like, you need to get outside. I was like, why? They were like, this motherfucker was over here trying to break into your shit. And I was like, what are you talking about? The fucking neighbors.
Okay.
The gangsters. So I was like, what are you talking about? And they were like, dude, this motherfucker tried to break into your shit. And I was like, really? So I go fucking running out there. I put the gun away because I was like, dude, I'm not going to take this out and have them fucking rip it out of my hands.
Of course not.
So I get out there, but there's like 10 of them stomping the shit out of this little Mexican dude. They were like beating the fuck out of him, dude. Like, he was not moving.
Jesus.
Like, I wanted to check for a pulse, but I was like, dude, I'm not going to touch this motherfucker.
Yeah.
So then I look over at my garage, and mine was the furthest one to the right, and they all had small garage doors.
Yeah.
The single garage doors and everything, each
I
one.
remember.
But the whole car park was like all open. The whole garage inside was all open, right? So when I walk up, I see the bolt cutters laying on the floor. I see that my lock is all chewed up, and this dude's just like not even fucking moving while they're stomping the shit out of him. I'm like, dude, these motherfuckers already killed him. So then I hear Yvette screaming from the apartment, and then the neighbor comes out. He's like, hey, what's going on? I was like, hey, dude. I was like, call 911. And they're like, no. I was like, hey, you guys get the fuck out of here. I was like, just go. I was like, get the fuck out of here. I was like, I'll deal with this. So we call the cops. The cops show up and everything. They're like, you call the cops? And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, this guy's just all like bloody and fucked up, man. I don't know what happened. And he was like, so how'd you find him? I was like, the alarm on my car is going off. I was like, it's really sensitive, dude. I was like, I mean, if you go and bang on my garage door right now, I was like, my alarm's going to go off.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, the Viper was the best fucking alarm.
Yeah, I remember those.
You know, and you'd look at the little screen and it'd tell you what was touched.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we got, like, they got away with it. And a couple days later, I got them all fucked up and drunk and shit.
Mm-hmm.
Then my birthday comes, and I was like, okay, there's this car show on, I think it was like LaSalle or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was this random car show, and me and Hershey were in a car club, and we're like, yeah, we're going to go hit this car show and everything, try to put our name out there. So I go open the garage door, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And Adriana was a baby, and she's like, I want to go with my puppy. And I was like, make our way here, let me get the car ready, your car seat, and then we got to put David in the back seat, let me get the car ready. I got to get it out so that way we can get you guys in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that she followed me, so my garage door was all kinds of fucked up, dude.
Yeah, I remember.
And the door falls on her head. So it bangs her, like, I opened up the garage, I held it up,
Wow.
it's held up, I'm like, alright, that's cool. I take like 2 steps forward, then I hear her behind me. I just hear her feet behind me, and as soon as I go to turn to look at her, I see the garage door coming down. I was like, wait, 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 and I start running towards the garage door. So I was bruised up. Those 2x4s that went across it was like shoulder neck area and my ribs, but it like clapped her head and it shot her at my exhaust.
Oh wow!
And I had a 3-inch pipe on that exhaust.
Yeah, I remember.
So it gashed like the top of her head open. We ended up spending my birthday at the hospital. I think she got like 4 or 5 staples and shit. It was nuts, dude.
Wow.
It was nuts. That it was rough back then.
And you were there for how long at that place?
It wasn't long. It was same thing. It was really short lived.
Okay. So where'd you move from there?
I went back to my mom's. Caesar, Yvette, and his ex. They stayed in that apartment. All kinds of sour shit happened. And I was like, you know what? I was like, this is the kind of shit you're gonna do. Like, fuck you, I'm out. So I left.
Okay. And so, this is all while you were still at the dealership?
At this time...
Or were you somewhere else?
Yeah, I was still at the dealership.
Okay.
I was still at the dealership. It was right after all this happened. I was doing the dealership and Del Taco. So right after this happened, I quit everything. Like whole life changed. Like every last fucking part of my life changed.
After you quit?
Yeah, after I quit and moved out of there, I quit there. I quit both jobs. I was at my mom's house. I cut off all ties from all the friends. Basically told her, like, hey, since we're separated, you're keeping all those fucking friends. And that's when I met my second baby's mom, Claudia.
Okay. What year was this?
This was 2004. Okay. We're already in 2004. It was somewhere around the beginning of 2004, because right after all that shit went down, I met her. Yeah. And call it what you want. And it was rebound or whatever. Huh?
How did you meet?
I can't remember. You know what? It might have been AOL.
Really?
It might have been fucking America
like
Online.
Early social media.
Yeah. So like that's when America Online was coming up.
AOL chat rooms.
Yeah, dude. And then
hey, are you in the area?
Oddly, I found Riverside County, and then Riverside County opened up to Moreno Valley. And then that's when it was all dial up and shit, and like, oh, send me a picture, and it took like 5 minutes for the picture to load up and everything. And
hey, those were the days of MySpace.
No, it was before.
No, it was right there.
It was before. It was before
2004, MySpace. 2007 to 2008.
No, when me and her met, when we met, it was before MySpace. Because when MySpace started, I was already with Yvette again.
Oh, when I was on MySpace, it was like me and Allie met. I was like, what is this? I remember it's funny, like, as Keith came over, we went over to Keith's house. And like, yeah, I have like one of my MySpace friends that was on Pit My Ride. I'm on one of your MySpace, or what's MySpace? I'm like, yeah, they were on it. Like, I know somebody that was on. I was like, really? I was like, what is it? And then he showed us. I was like, oh shit. And that's where we got all fascinated.
See, but that's where a lot of people from our generation fucked up.
By what?
Because if we would have actually like stuck to MySpace and actually paid attention to
code.
We all would have learned how to code.
Yeah, we all
because everything you wanted to do to your page, you had to code it.
Custom, like it made it like an incentive.
Yeah, dude, and it was like, so good.
Oh, like I could do this extra shit.
Yeah, like I'll add this here. Extra. When it says like your biography or whatever that you want to add in, you put in your fucking bio. You have to stick the code into the bio and then put in your bio anyway. I'm like, dude, if we would have thought about it back then, we would have totally fucking learned how to code.
Good times, man.
It was.
It was like
it really was.
It was those simpler times.
But yeah, I mean, like I thought she was gonna be like probably like a hit and run or something. Okay. And she.
So you probably just didn't think much of it.
I did. I honestly didn't.
Wanted to just kind of see somebody, talk to somebody.
Yeah, this was like prior to online dating.
Yeah.
So we didn't know anything about online dating. I was like, you know what? I just cut off all ties from basically every friend that I have. I don't really know anybody else anymore. Anybody that I do know, that I don't want to talk to them. So I was like, all right, let's see what happens here. And then I met her, and uh, she ended up pregnant, like really fast. I mean, I'd say within the first like 2 months that we were together, she ended up pregnant.
And I mean, did that cause for concern, or did you say okay, or did you
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
like
I mean,
question it?
yeah. At first, I mean, I had just gone through all kinds of different shit. Um, I had a lot of serious trust issues, but I was like, she doesn't know anybody that I know. I don't know
Yeah.
anybody that she knows, and I think I can trust her. But at the same time, like maybe I should get a DNA test. And
Mm-hmm.
then, going further into it, I was just like, you know what? Like, it's my kid. Like, I'm not even gonna fucking deny it or argue it or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, I mean, we had a friend that thought that he was going to have a baby, and then the baby came out
Yeah.
definitely not his.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was fine with it, and I was like, whatever. So we're dealing with this, and
Okay.
one day I
So
go.
baby number 3 comes
So
around.
baby number 3 is on her way,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, whatever. I'm still trying to do more and better for the two younger ones. I felt like there was a really big debt that I owed them because of the lack of time that I spent with Adriana for her first
Mm-hmm.
full year. And I mean, I've told them now, Adriana's 20 now. So I mean, I told
Mm-hmm.
them when they were younger too. After she was 15, I started telling her, I was like, there was a lot of difference because I felt like because I wasn't there, I owed you guys more. I was like, but once, your brothers and your sister was born, a lot of things changed.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned how to level everything out, which was, I mean, that was like basically the best thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Was it, as hard as it always was, the best thing was that I got to grow up with the kids.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to start having kids in the 30s, late 30s, mid 30s, whenever. But by
Or
then,
40s.
or 40s, dude, I mean, I heard of some 50-year-old lady
Mm-hmm.
talking about, oh, I'm pregnant. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. It
But you're
happens.
you're so set in your ways by the time you get there that it's hard for you to adapt to something different.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was so young, I adapted really well with the kids, and I learned a lot with
Mm-hmm.
and for the kids.
Yeah.
So
You were
she's
still growing
pregnant.
too. You were still trying to gather your
Yeah, so
information of, like who you
yeah,
are.
myself.
Yeah.
But that's why it's so different for me when I see a lot of our old friends who have kids now.
Mm-hmm.
Even with Liz, with Gorda, she had her son
Mm-hmm.
in her, like, I think it was like mid-teens, I think like 16.
Yeah.
But same thing though, like she grew up with him, and
Yeah.
she's a great mom, dude. Like
Yeah.
she is a great mom, and he has a lot of respect for her and shit. And he ended up being a really good kid. She has her other kids, but I mean, she
Mm-hmm.
started there. I started later and on the wrong fucking path because usual and typical shit is like, oh yeah, the dad's not around.
Yeah.
So once I find out that she's pregnant and we're doing everything, and I think she was like 5 or 6 months pregnant already, 4 or 5 months pregnant. She's 4 or 5 months pregnant, and me and Yvette had the agreement that I would only pick up Adrienne and David from her mom. So I show up one day to pick them up, and then
Mm-hmm.
here she is. She throws the door open,
Wow.
and I was like, okay. And then I start telling the kids, I was like, hey, come on out. And then I look at her, and I was like, oh shit. And she's like 6 months pregnant. So
Yeah.
she's like three, two or yeah, she was like 3 or 4 months over. So she was like 7 months
Oh
pregnant.
wow.
So I was like, oh shit. And I I was trying to suck it in. I was like, like don't even give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting the kids things, and I grab their bags, and I'm trying to turn around and walk away. Like I didn't say a fucking word to her.
Yeah.
And she was like, what? She was like, you're gonna pretend that you don't see this? And I was like, what do you want from me? And she was just like, you're not gonna say anything. I was like, oh, okay. Congratulations. And then she was like, oh, and she was like, that's all you have to say? I was like, well, what the fuck else do you want me to say? She was like, well, the kids told me that your new girlfriend's pregnant. I was like, that has nothing to do with you. Like, so what the fuck do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
So I was really upset. So then we go through all of that, and I was like, oh man, like what the fuck am I gonna do now?
Yeah.
So we go back to Claudia's house, and I told her, I was like, hey, I was like, so I was like, she's pregnant, dude. And she was like, oh, you were cheating on me? I was like, no, like she's further along than you are, and it was prior to,
Yeah.
you being existent in my life.
Yeah.
I told her, I was like, do what you gotta do, handle whatever you want to handle. Like as far as the baby goes, as far as you go, like I'll
Mm-hmm.
always help you out. My baby's my baby. I was like, but I was like, I have no choice. I was like, I'm gonna take care of my kid.
Mm-hmm.
So then her parents get involved. I explained it to them too, and they're fucking pissed. And it was this huge sloppy fucking mess. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, I'm out, but I was like, I'm
Yeah, I
around.
mean, I'd look at it from the parents' perspective. I'm like,
Oh, dude,
A, you already have two kids,
yeah, I'd already have
a
my
third
shotgun
one on
out.
the way.
I'd have my shotgun out. Like, get the fuck out,
You
dude. Don't come
know?
back.
I
Like,
mean, yeah, exactly. You'd flip it on your perspective, you being the parent, you kind of like dealing with that. It's like, what the fuck?
right? So
Yeah, I'm
then,
surprised, man. Like, I I don't know. Like, I kind of part of me like wish I was like a little more involved with like you during that time, man. You were probably like dealing with a lot, and
oh, dude, you have no idea, man.
I don't even know where I was. What
It
year
was.
was this? It was
This was
2005,
2004. This
2004.
was this was 2004.
Oh,
Sean was born
yeah.
in January of 2005, and then Adina was born in April.
Huh.
So Sean came a little bit earlier than he should have. My dad was home on leave from Iraq because they sent him home. He had done 18 months, and as soon as he got home, he volunteered again to do. I think that was going to be third his
Hmm.
third tour out there,
Yeah.
and we were out and talking, and he told me, he was like, no, he was like, leave her alone. He was like, just leave her alone. He was like, take care of Adrienne and David. I was like, dude, I was like, I can't do that, man.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't fucking do that.
Yeah.
And he was talking all kinds of shit, and I was like, Dad, I was like, I can't do that. He
Yeah.
was like, oh, he was like, but she asked for it. He was like, look what she did, and blah blah. And I was like, dude, I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So then, while we're in the car and talking, my mom calls and says, hey, she was like, I'm on my way to the hospital. She's in labor. You got to get over here.
Hmm.
So I tell my dad, I was like, yeah, I got to get over there. And then he stops at Kids R Us.
Hmm.
He stops at Kids R Us, and he goes, well, let's get the outfit for your son. So we jump out and get this little fucking like package deal outfit shit. We get over there, and he comes up, and they're like, hey, they're like, the baby's fine. He's already born. They're like, everything's well.
Hmm.
They're like, Yvette's resting. They're like, what do you want to do? They're like, there's talk about an argument between mother and father.
Hmm.
I was like, nothing, man. I was like, if you guys say it's good, I was like, if you guys say everything is good, um, I'll just fill out the paperwork, and when can I take my son? And I mean, even Yvette, she was struggling a lot at that time too, and
Hmm.
um, I just explained it to her mom. I was like, hey, you know what? I was like, with all the struggles and everything that she's going through right now, and
Hmm.
you guys trying to play catch up and shit, like, I'll leave Adrienne and David there for now, but like, I'm taking Sean. Like, I'm taking this baby.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not leaving him with her. It's hard enough as it is. I think we can deal with this. So then they were like, all right, here's all the paperwork. I start filling everything out. They're like, what are you gonna name your child? And I turned around to my dad and told him, I was like, hey, man, I was like, well, I was like, name your grandson. And he was like, no, 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 I can't.
Hmm.
And I was like, Dad, I was like, you're home on leave. I was like, you've been gone for 3 fucking years with this whole bullshit in
Yeah.
Iraq. Like,
Yeah.
you're home now, man. I was like, name your grandson. So he names him Sean. And then I was like, can I talk to Mom real quick? So I walk in with her, and I told her, I was like, hey, I was like, I got this.
Hmm.
Don't worry about shit. Blah blah.
Hmm.
And like, she was really upset about it, but I told her, I was like, I think it's in his best interest and shit, and let's not just fight about it. There's no reason to debate about it. I'll make sure he's well taken care of. And I mean, to the day, dude, he's doing fucking great.
Hmm.
I told her, I was like, eventually, once everything settles down, and later on in life, I was like, we'll explain everything, and then we'll make amends. So I take him home to an almost ready to burst X.
Yeah.
And she's 6 months in, and she's trying to deal with a newborn while she's carrying my daughter. And then everybody's like, "Oh, twins!" Like twins. It's
Yeah.
fucking crazy with twins.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, "Twins isn't hard, man. Having 3 months separate kids. That's a fucking wild ride.
Yeah, I
Like
bet.
twins, it's about the same, except they're more compatible to each other,
Mm.
so it's easier to try to balance things out with them. When it's two completely separate kids, Adina was okay. She
Mm.
was easy. You'd grab her and she'd relax. Sean would never stop crying to him.
Yeah.
Like he just never stopped crying.
Yeah.
So then we get past that, and a year later, uh, she ends up pregnant again.
Mm-hmm. Less than a year or like after a year?
It's about a year later.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we get to that point,
Mm-hmm.
and what I think I was 20, 23, 24, like 23.
No, not at that age.
Huh?
Oh, wait, when Ethan was born?
Me? No, me. I was like 23 or 24,
No, when
and
Ethan was born?
yeah, I think so. He's 15 now, so I was 24. I was 24 when he was born.
This was what, 2008?
This was 2006.
2006? Yeah, I'm trying to do the math on it. I was like, when was I 21? 2003. So yeah, 3 years after that, 2006.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I was like about like 24.
yeah, 24.
So 24 with 5 kids, dude. That's where I was like, oh my god, like what the fuck am I gonna do?
Yeah.
I started talking to my insurance. By then, I was working at K&N
Okay.
through a temp agency, and that went sour. Um, it was
How
all
long were
kinds
you
of
there
stupid
for?
shit. I was through the temp agency, so I was there for 3 months,
Oh, okay.
and I I had left Ross because David was in the hospital over Christmas break.
Mm.
And Ross, I think the Ross distribution center had just been opened. I think it was like maybe 8 months old. I
Mm.
got promoted 3 times in the couple months that I was there. But then David was in the hospital. He got sick and he was dehydrated and everything. So I stayed in the hospital with him the whole time. And
Would Ross have a cow about it and said like,
no,
why weren't you
I was
there?
I was supposed to be promoted for the fourth time,
Mm.
but the guy that wanted the position made some false claims. So when I went back, this guy said that I sexually harassed him.
Wow.
And back then, it wasn't okay to do the whole like slapping each other's asses type of thing between the guys. Like I wasn't at that point in my life. Now you could do like all the homie gay jokes and everything, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But back then, no, it was I didn't know what happened. So I go back to work and I was like, hey, what's up? I was like, here's all the paperwork and everything for me being in the hospital with my son. So I'm gonna go back to work, and they're like, yeah, you've been accused for sexual harassment.
Wow.
And I was like, shut up. I was like, who? I was like, who? I was like, I have a bunch of old ladies, and they're like, no, it was him. And I was like, yeah. I
Wow.
was like, but we've been here to HR 2 times already because he's saying that he wants my position and this and that and blah blah blah. So they're like, we can say that you just quit because you've been gone, or we're going to have to fire you for sexual harassment. It's going to be on your permanent record. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, where's my check? I quit. Like if I
Wow.
quit, I was like, if I quit 5 or 6 days ago because I've been in the hospital this long, I
Yeah.
was like, where's my check? And they're like, oh no, you have to wait. I was like, no. I was like, no, no. I was like, you guys had this planned and everything. I was like, so I was like, give me my check.
Yeah.
So I ended up at K&N, and this guy, they were opening a second shift. Me and Keith were going to be on that second shift,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the night shift.
Mm-hmm.
The dude that
I remember
was
that.
the dude that was the supervisor or the main guy for the polishing and everything, because we were polishing intakes. Um, he was he wanted the night shift because this guy, we had to do I think like 20 intakes per shift, right? This guy would take like 2 to 3 hour naps during the shift, but he was busting out like 40 or 50 of these things, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like completely polished. This went from aluminum
Yeah.
to straight chrome looking polished out.
Yeah.
So I was struggling to get the 20 to maybe 25.
Yeah.
Keith was shotgunning them into
Boom,
walls,
boom,
shooting
boom,
them into
boom.
the ceiling. I mean, it was a
Yeah.
struggle, dude. It was a struggle. It was definitely the dirtiest job. It was like disgustingly dirty job.
I bet.
So he tells them that I stole what they call a first article for an NSX,
Mm-hmm.
and this is back in 2004, dude.
Yeah.
2005,
2005. Yeah.
and the first article is it's it's all steel. It's 100% steel, and there's no curves on it. It's like straight line, and then there's a full turn, and but they draw and write down all the angles, and then the air pressure for the bender, and they do
Yeah.
all kinds of different things. He's talking about that I stole it, and I was like, okay, well, what am I gonna do with an NSX intake? Like, I don't know anybody that has an NSX.
Yeah. It's a nice car.
Yeah, I was like, dude, I was like, I don't even know where to go to try to get rid of this thing. I was like, and on top of that, it's 100% steel, and it will not go into the car. Like, it's basically like a prototype. It's like a shape.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I was like, you know what? I was like, I get it. I'm supposed to get hired the next day. I did it through a temp agency. It's the one and only time in my life that I've ever messed with a temp agency.
Yeah.
I was like, now I know not to do this again.
Yep.
So then that's when Franco said, hey, you know what? Me and Billy are over here. I've known these guys my whole lives.
At Quad Graphics.
Yeah. And they were like, why don't you come over here to Quad? So I ended up going into Quad, and I mean, I was set up in printing for the next 17 years of my life.
So what year is this?
This was
26? 2006?
2000.
2007?
This was 2005 or 2004. Ethan wasn't born yet. So yeah, it was 2005.
Okay. 2005?
Yeah, it was about 2005. You know what? No, I'm off. I'm off. It was before Dina was born.
Yeah.
Sean had just been born. No, it was before Sean was born. Holy shit. I went into Quad Graphics
That far back ago? 2004?
2000. I went into Quad Graphics in 2004, the week before Thanksgiving, because I
Really?
had to work Thanksgiving
That
without
far
the
back,
holiday
huh?
pay.
I didn't know it was that far back. I thought it was
Hmm.
right around that 2006, 7.
No, dude, it was 17. It was 17 years in printing, man.
Man. Okay.
It was 17 years in printing, and it was good. I mean, it was good to me. By the time
Mm-hmm.
now that I'm thinking about all of it, Adina and Sean were born, and I had Kaiser. And then Ethan was born, and I still had Kaiser.
Okay. So they gave you good benefits
Yeah, and
and
the
gave
and the
you good
benefits
pay.
were great, dude. They were
Good pay.
great. The pay was good.
Overtime.
Everything. I mean, the daily overtime. And then after me and Claudia separated, after Ethan was born,
What
um,
year? 2006?
this was 2006 already. Yeah,
Okay.
and the day after me and Claudia separated,
Mm-hmm.
um, Yvette calls me to talk to me about the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, hey, you know what? Like, we're gonna go out here to this pool hall. Why don't
Mm-hmm.
you come meet me? I need to talk to you. She
Mm-hmm.
comes out, and Claudia's family was so good to Adrienne and David,
Mm-hmm.
and they were already helping me with Sean.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I want them. I was even though we're separating, I was like, I want them to still be a part of their lives because I mean they've been great to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and if it wasn't for them and my family, I wouldn't be able to be working my job because my job was 12-hour graveyard shift. So she freaks out and she's all pissed off and she fucking leaves.
Over what?
Just because she was so upset that I was telling her, like, hey, I'm going to have my ex be around our kids.
Okay.
So I'm telling my first baby's mom that I want my second baby's mom around our kids. So she got all upset.
Really?
So she gets butthurt and she leaves.
Mm.
But then I turn around and I look over my shoulder and there's Claudia too.
Oh.
I don't know if they ever told you about that. Like,
No.
dude. So I guess
What happened there?
so. This was like I said. This was like either this was I'm pretty sure it was like the day after or a couple days after me and her separated. She goes looking for me, and she goes straight to Keith's house. She goes and interrogates the shit out of Keith's mom, and
Who's this that's doing this?
Claudia.
Claudia.
So
Really? And
Keith's
why?
mom's
What's
finding
she
like, you know
trying to
what,
find
you're
out?
fucking crazy. She was like, they're over there at the pool hall in Riverside. So she hauls ass out there. By the time she gets there, Yvette's leaving and she's walking in, and they see each other.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, dude, I feel like a dick because,
And this is the first time them ever crossing paths?
No, they'd seen each other a couple times,
Okay.
but I
But
mean, like,
okay, but
I kept
they
them
know who they are.
yeah, I kept them as far away from each other as possible just because of
Yeah.
the way, most shit had
Just to
been working
avoid
out.
problems.
So I'm sitting here and I'm getting ready to shoot, and I think I had Mike and Keith in front of me and Tim,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just see all their faces, like, with the whole, like, oh my god, surprise look, dude.
Yeah.
They're like, oh shit. And I turn around and I look, and Claudia's standing right there, but it didn't register.
Yeah.
So I turn around, I was like, hey, what's up? And I turn away. And then next thing you know, it clicks. I turn around and she fucking hits me, dude.
Really?
She just like fucking balls up her fist and fucking clocks me. And I was like, oh shit.
What? Just because you happen to be there?
Because she found me with my ex.
Okay.
So she finds that happens, and I look at them. I was like, did she just fucking hit me? I turn around and there she goes for a second swing, and I was like, okay, now she's trying.
Yeah.
So I drag her ass out, we argue, and I was like, dude, you don't even know what's going on. I explain everything. She's like, fuck you, fuck this, fuck that. She jumps in her car, and then she tries to fucking run me over, dude.
Wow.
So my head and knee hit the windshield. So I jump up in the air and I go sideways, and she hits me, and I roll onto the hood. My head and knee hit the windshield, and she had those cracks on there for at least like 6 or 7 years. Like she just fucking left it. Like it was like her fucking pride and trophy and shit of remember that time I fucking hit you, I'll do it again type of deal.
There. It's a memory.
So after that happens, I don't know how it all ended up happening. There was never like a specific date to where you can say that me and Yvette got back together. Right? So I ended up talking to a lot of old friends, and then she ended up showing up again, and we just ended up back together.
There was like 2006, 2007?
This was like 2000, yeah, this was like 2006 and 2007.
Okay.
So we end up back together. Then we end up eventually moving in together again, and then we're moving around a lot. And
years start like Hemet or San Jacinto.
Yeah, so first I think it was.
Where was it first?
First it was the apartments across the street from the mall.
That was there first?
Mm-hmm. We were there first.
Okay. And yeah, I remember you staying there, and I remember that was Quad Graphics. Yeah, and then you were just like, want a Monster? And you had like a big old case of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, damn, dude, are you really drinking that many?
That shit hasn't changed, dude. I get a case. I get a case of Monsters every like 3 weeks.
Okay. Avoid that sugar, man.
It's like one a day, dude.
Avoid that sugar.
What are you talking about, man? If you drink a beer, there's just as much sugar in that beer that there is in the Monster.
Yeah. Way more.
Does it show? Does it show on there?
Good question. Probably. It's super tiny. It does say.
How much sugar is it?
Has 131 calories.
So does it say sugar content?
Doesn't say sugar. No sugar.
So
go on.
So we're at those apartments, and then we moved to the apartments.
You were there for a good minute.
We were there for.
You were at those apartments.
Yeah, about a year and a half. Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
And then
I remember around that time. That's when, we'd hang out a lot more, and
we're doing the pool a lot right there. Yeah,
I think
that was when the
what
Bronco got towed out of there, and I thought you guys were fucking with me.
Oh, really?
Remember that?
No,
you don't remember that? You were there.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, you guys were there, and I woke up and I was like, all right, I'm leaving to work, and then I go outside and I was like, where the fuck is the Bronco? Oh, you guys
Really?
fucking with me? Where's the Bronco? And I had to call the cops. The
Wow.
the
No, I
apartments
don't
had
remember
it
that one.
towed. The
Uh,
apartments had it towed. There was no assigned parking,
yeah.
but they towed my car because it wasn't in its designated parking space.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
No, the worst part was my dad was in Iraq.
And
The car
like,
was under his name,
oh, so you
so
couldn't
I
pull it out?
couldn't. Yeah, it was a pain in the ass. We had to get a hold of him, and then we
Wow.
ended up having to forge his signature for the paperwork for it, and what was it, power of attorney to finally get it out. It
Wow.
ended up costing me, I think it was like $800 or $900 to
Wow.
get out of the tow yard.
Yeah, I remember that place, and I remember the kids just being so little. I think they were like
Mm-hmm.
8,
No,
9.
no, not even. They were Adriana and David were going to. I can't even remember the name of the school anymore.
Oh, there's
Seneca.
okay.
I think it was Seneca, the one above the 60,
Okay.
the one above the 60 freeway, way in the back hills,
Uh-huh.
because supposedly it was the best elementary school.
Uh-huh. Okay, I know what you're talking about.
And they were the only two that were in school, so they weren't even 7 or 8 yet. They were like 5 and 6. Because then we moved to the apartment
Mm-hmm.
on Heacock, and that's when Yvette was working at Quad. She was working at Quebecor during the day shift, and I was on the
Mm-hmm.
night shift. So she'd bring me the kids at 6 a.m. I'd go home with the kids at 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
I'd get them ready. I'd take David to. Oh no, you know what? Adriana was the only one that was in school because David was going to kindergarten
Mm-hmm.
at that school. So I'd have to drop them both off at I think 8. I'd pick up David at noon, and then I'd pick up Adriana at
Wow.
2:30.
Yeah.
And those were like some rough times.
Yeah.
And then we had that house on Gold Bluff above the 60. Was it
Okay.
Ironwood in Paris?
Wait, isn't that when you were living with your sister?
Yeah,
That was 2007 or 8?
I do. I can't even remember. I could
It
not even
must have
remember.
been
Because
2007.
after that is when we went to Hemet.
Yeah, it was like it had been like 2007
And I mean, like
because
this.
it was like right around the time that I met Amanda. I remember like I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go hang out with David.
Do I remember? I remember
Yeah.
Amanda when you first hit up Amanda.
Hmm.
She hit me up and she was like, "Hey," she was like, "Who is this?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Who's who?" I was, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Your friend Jesse's trying to hit me up and this." And I was like, "Oh no, no." I was like, "Jesse's a good guy." I was like, "Jesse's definitely like one of my closest friends." He was like, I don't trust anybody." I was like, "And he's one of the guys that I trust."
Yeah. I remember hearing that.
Yeah, that shit was
Yeah,
fun.
that was right around that time. I was like, yeah, you had your wedding there.
Yeah, I had the wedding there.
That's right.
I had the wedding there, and what is it? 18 months later. Not even 18 months, dude. I think it was like
That was 08.
14 months later.
That was
14
08,
months.
wasn't it?
Huh?
08.
Dude, I can't even remember. It was, no, it was later than that. Me and
2000.
Alicia got together 10 years ago.
Yes.
We're going on 11
2012.
years. So it was
Yeah.
2010. It was already 2010. No, it was 2011 already. It was the end of 2010.
Yeah, that you were together.
Yeah, it was the beginning of 2010 when we got
So it was
married.
around that time because it was like
Yeah.
then 2008 is when you got married the first time.
No, no. In 2010 we got married, I think.
Yvette?
Hmm. Or
Okay.
2009, one of those two. Yeah,
So then it was probably 2009. Because I remember
and
it was like 2007, 2008, 2009.
it was either 2009 or 2010 that we got married, and like 14 months later, dude, we separated. Or not even 14 months.
Mm-hmm.
Not even 14 months. We separated. We separated. Like all hell broke loose again, and that's where I was like, you know what? I was like,
Mm-hmm.
that we're done. Like I was sitting here trying to hold on to all kinds of things. Yeah, yeah. But then what? I moved into my mom's house. I was helping her with the bills. I was taking care of all kinds of things. And me and the kids were getting better and better after the separation. I kept the kids, so I had 3 kids living with me 100% of the time. I had the other 2 coming back and forth. I was struggling with a lot of things. Depression was very, very heavy at that time. I was completely lost. One day, my oldest daughter, Adriana, says that she wants to live with her mom, and I said, if you do this, and if we do this, um, it was going to be really hard to undo this. And I don't know if you remember when that all happened. That's when we were hanging out at Billy's house over there by Lake Paris. That after the separation, I
Mm-hmm.
kept the kids, and Adriana said that she wanted to go live with Yvette.
No, I don't remember that.
So David was really adamant about wanting to stay.
Uh-huh.
And I told him that there was no way that I was going to separate the kids. So I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, but I can't leave. I can't keep you by yourself and then have them go over there. And,
Yeah.
you guys have to stay together. You're the big brother. Like, she's your older sister, but you're the big brother and you have to go. So they went and moved in with Yvette over there in Hemet when she was living with her mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I explained it to Adriana. I was like, if you go, I was like, and you don't like it, I was like, it's going to be really hard to undo this.
Mm-hmm.
So you fast forward 2 years after that, I'm already with Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
We've been together for over a year, and that's when we decided to move to Riverside.
Mm-hmm.
So we got the house. We rented the house. It's a 3-bedroom. As soon
And
as we got it,
let's back up a little bit. I mean, you guys met when, where?
with Alicia, uh, one of my coworkers, actually Franco was dating a girl,
Mm-hmm.
and he was dating a girl. So after a while, she ends up pregnant, and her brother asked if we were hiring. They come in. He comes in with all of
Mm-hmm.
his friends. We're all getting along, and that's when Billy got the house, or Billy already had his house by Lake Paris.
Mm-hmm.
Then they ended up buying a house across the street from him.
Oh, really?
Like, and it was like sheer coincidence. It wasn't like he was telling them to go over there. So they're like, there's a cul-de-sac right in front of his old house,
Yeah.
and they bought a house there. So we're just running back and forth, all the coworkers, and then I meet Franco's baby's mom, and she was like, you know what? She's like, I have this perfect girl for you.
Mm-hmm.
She was like, she loves kids. She's great with kids. She takes care of my kid.
Mm-hmm.
She's like this and that, and starts telling me all this shit. And I was like, dude, I don't want to meet anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, I'm still dealing with this fucking depression. Again, like, fucking alcoholism fucking kicked in really bad. I was all kinds of fucking sideways. The only time I was straight was when I had the kids. Aside from that, like, I wasn't sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't eating right, nothing, dude. I was all kinds of fucked up. So, next thing I know, they have a Halloween party,
Mm-hmm.
and they invited all of us to go. I show up. I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm gonna do like super minimal. I went to one of those fucking Halloween stores,
Mm-hmm.
and they had this like Superman like plate type of thing that you just pull over. So I bought that, and I just dressed regular with the button up, and they were like, "What are you supposed to be?" And I just opened up the shirt, and then I
There you
look
go.
over, and there's this blonde, blue-eyed, big-boobed white girl wearing a Supergirl costume, and I was like, "Okay." And then
Mm-hmm.
she was like, "Oh, look, that's my friend, and you guys coincidentally dress the same." So then she was like, "Here, let me introduce you." I was like, "No, dude, I don't want to. I don't want to meet her. I don't want to meet anybody. Like, fucking leave me alone. I just want to drink." So she ends up bringing her over anyway, and she walks up and she was like, "Hey, look." She was like, "We're wearing the same. We can match up."
Yeah.
I was like, "Supergirl and Superman are cousins. Like, we can't fucking match up, dude. Like,
You
get the fuck
know?
away from me. That's fucking weird." So I completely blew her off, dude. Completely blew her off. Like, when we talk about it, Alicia loves to like try to like female romanticize
Yeah,
this
it was
shit.
like,
And
we
yeah,
just
it's like,
happened to
it was
match.
so
I get it.
cute.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, there was nothing cute about that night, man. There was nothing cute about that night. So like, it was cool. It was a good party and everything. Everybody's having a good time. She's running around. Alicia's drinking. Everybody's just like completely fucking drunk. I'm talking to all the coworkers, and I mean, these guys are younger than I am.
Yeah.
These guys are barely hitting 21. I was already,
Going on to 30.
yeah, going into my later later 20s.
Well, yeah, later 20s.
Yeah, later
Because we
20s.
don't hit 30 till 2012. Well, it was 2012.
It was
Or was it?
yeah, it was 2011.
2011?
It was 2011, so I was either
Okay.
28 or 29.
Yeah, 2029. Yeah,
Yeah, I was, yeah, 28.
28. We'll call it
No, I
28.
just turned 29
Okay.
because this was Halloween and my birthday is the beginning of October.
Okay.
So, these guys are like, "Hey, come on, let's go." So we go to this other party. We get to this other party, dude, and these guys are literally walking around with a tray of Coke. Like, they're just walking around all, like, super, it's okay, fucking nonchalant, like, "Hey, what's up, man? You want some Coke?" No, dude, I don't want any fucking Coke. Like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
Go up to my homeboy, and I was like, "Hey, dude," I was like, "I gotta get out of here, man." I was like, I can't do this shit." I was like, "There's no beer here," and everybody's running around like fucking Coke's the thing to do. So he was just like, "You know what?" He was like, "Just take my car." It's already like 1 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stupid drunk. And I was like, dude, I was like, I'm going to drive your car all the way across Marina Valley to get all the way down into Paris. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he was like, yeah. He was like, fuck it. He was like, whatever happens, happens. And I was like, all right, well, I was like, I guess I'm going to experience my first DUI, which to the date, never had a DUI,
Knock on wood.
right?
Yeah.
I better shut my mouth right now. But I'm fine about it, right? Get in the car, drove all the way back. There's probably like 7 or 8 people left. She's one of them. There's this douchebag that's dressed like what's it called, Top Gun, like Maverick.
Yeah.
And then there's the other guy that's an even bigger douche, dressed like he's Rambo.
Mm.
I had already taken the costume off. I'm just like, whatever. I'm in a sweater and my jeans. And I showed up, and I'd given the friend my car keys. It was their house, so I was like, yeah. I was like, just keep my car keys.
Mm.
So I show up and I go drop off one guy's keys to get my keys. And she's just like all kinds of fucked up, dude. Alicia's all like fucking tipping her head everywhere. She's all fucked up. And Rambo's trying to fucking like grind up on her. I don't say anything. I don't think anything of it. I'm like, whatever, dude. I don't fucking know you. I just want to get my keys and go home. Next thing I know, she goes running into the house. I'm trying to walk into the house through the garage, and she like throws me out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I was like, all right. And she's screaming and yelling into her phone. She goes into one of the kids' rooms. She sits down on the bed, and she's like all super drunk. She lays down, and she's trying to talk and talk and talk. Obviously, I found out later what it was. And then she's like, okay, call me back as soon as you get to someone's house. So I go into the kitchen, start talking to Julie. I'm like, hey, give me my keys. I get my keys.
Mm.
I'm walking out, and Rambo's coming in as I'm going towards the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And I walk up to the bedroom, and I look into the room, and Alicia's knocked out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's like passed out drunk. Yeah. And she's wearing that short ass skirt because she was fucking Supergirl. Her ass is hanging out. She says she was wearing shorts, but I don't fucking remember that. Oh, I had a jacket on too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm thinking about it. I had the jacket on because I put it on her. So, like, he goes and tries to sit down on the bed with her, and he's talking to her and shit, and I see him, he's like trying to rub on her back. And that's when I stopped, and I was like, hey, dude, I was like, she's pretty fucked up, man. Like, you should kick rocks. And this guy's just like, hey, he was like, don't worry about it, you know, blah, blah. I was like, no. Like, no. Like, this shit ain't happening, dude. I was like, you need to get the fuck on, man. He was like, mind your own fucking business. And he gets up and tries to close the door. And I was like, no, dude. I was like, we're going to fucking leave.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm leaving right now. I was like, you're coming with me. And this guy starts trying to like flex and shit and starts talking shit. And he was like, I'm a fucking Marine. And I was like, dude, I was like, I don't care what you are, man. I was like, if you don't leave, I was like, we got a problem. So the guy opens his mouth, tries to turn his back, and I grab him from his fucking pants because he didn't have a shirt on. They fucking dragged him outside. Next thing you know, Steven, my coworker, the guy that fucking owns the house, he comes running out. Billy pops up out of nowhere. I have no fucking clue where he came out of, and he's, I don't know if you remember how much he was drinking back then, but I mean, he's like walking sideways drunk.
Yeah.
And then
he was already with Katie at the time.
Yeah, they are. I think they already had the baby by then. I might be wrong.
By that time, no.
No, they didn't have the baby yet. They didn't have the baby yet. They just had the dog.
2011.
Yeah, they just had the dog.
Yeah.
So, I'm sitting here yelling at the guy. Next thing you know, Maverick runs up and he's like, oh, you don't want to fuck with him. I was like, hey, dude, I was like, back the fuck up. I was like, your homeboy's trying to take advantage of her. I was like, we got a fucking problem. Next, Steven's like, what the fuck's going on? And I was like, look, dude, I was like, your sister's friend is over there passed out drunk. I was like, homeboy was trying to get up on her and shit. I was like, I have a really big fucking problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like, fuck it. He was like, I got 10 on David. And he was like, fuck this, fuck that. I was like, no, dude. I was like, come on. I was like, we'll take a walk. I was like, let's go. Next thing you know, Maverick's like, no, fuck that. Here, let me talk to him real quick. They jumped in the car and they fucking left.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Okay.
go, I go back in. I go back in to go check on her and shit. And I take off my jacket and I put it on her
Mm-hmm.
because her fucking, from what I remember, her ass was hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
So I throw it on her, right? I just walk up and I throw the jacket on her. And then she wakes up screaming, yelling, don't touch me, this and that, get the fuck away from me. I was like, calm the fuck down, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down. I was like, I'm just covering you. Your ass is hanging out. So then I walk out. Me and Steven and Billy have a couple more beers. And I was like, all right, dude, I'm out of here. I was like, just tell your sister to put my jacket away. I'll pick it up tomorrow. So the next day I call and I was like, hey, what's up? I was like, I'm going to go pick up my jacket. And his sister was like, oh, well, my friend said that you can't get it unless you come over here and cook us dinner. I was like, dude, I was like, we're going fishing right now. I got pictures of that day. They had just stalked
Which
Lake
day?
Paris. They had just stalked Lake Paris
Uh-huh.
the next day after that fucking party. Me, Billy, and three other coworkers. So it was
Mm-hmm.
five of us. I think we caught like 23 trout that day,
Okay.
just like nonstop. Dude, we were fucking pulling them in. If they weren't big enough, we were fucking throwing them back. But we ended up taking home like 22.
Nice.
And from what I remember, you're only supposed to take home like 2 or 3 per person.
Yeah.
But we just fucking loaded them up and fucking left. So I got home and fucking made like ceviche. They fucking cooked them up. We did this huge fucking mess. And then after that, I made some aguachile. I made shrimp, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I show up to their house with ceviche and aguachile. And then while I was there, she was like, hey, do you know how to make rice? So I fucking made the rice. And then I called Billy, and Billy's like, all right, I'm walking over there right now. He's like, I grilled up the fucking some of the fish. Steven's like, oh, I did this with the fucking some of the trout. And then we're all getting together, and then I see these fucking white girls, dude. And oh my god, dude, this fucking to the day it still pisses me off.
What?
So when you eat aguachile, how do you eat it?
Tostada?
Right? These motherfuckers grabbed a bunch of rice, they put it down on the plate, they grabbed some of the ceviche and they put it on the side, and then they grabbed the fucking shrimp and they put it on top of the rice.
Mm-hmm.
Like all like super fucking awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's not how you eat it. And they're like, what? They're like, no, they're like, this is how we eat shrimp all the time. I was like, yeah, this isn't that kind of shrimp, dude.
Yeah.
This isn't no fucking butter sauteed bullshit. I was like, this is
Yeah.
some Mexican shit. I was like, put that shit in a bowl, get some chips or get some tostadas and fucking eat it.
Yeah. It was some tapatio.
And they're like, no, we're gonna eat it like this. And I was like, dude, I was like, you just dumped all that lime juice all over that rice. Like, you know what? I can't do this. I was like, I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, where's my jacket? And grabbed my jacket and fucking left. Like 4 hours later, we're drinking again. And 4 hours later, Steven's like, hey, he was like, my sister and her friend want you over there. So I go over there. I was like, what's up? And they're like, what are you doing here? I was like, what do you mean, what am I doing here? You told me to come over here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, no, we didn't. And I was like, fuck. Next thing you know, Julie's like, oh, she was like, hey, can you guys watch the baby for me while, I do this and that? And then after
Mm-hmm.
that, like, we hung out. I think we were talking until like fucking 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, dude. And we've been together ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. I annoyed the fuck out of her all 4 or 5 hours, and I've been doing it ever since. It's just been that simple. So not even 2 years in, we get the house, and Adriana and David both say that they want to come live with us.
Mm-hmm. I
Uh,
remember that.
so then Sean moves in with us.
How did that go over?
So with Sean, it was different, dude. Since Claudia was
So it
raising
was
him.
easier with David and Adriana.
With David and Adriana, they had already lived with me. David and Adriana had already spent a lot of time with Alicia.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, Ethan, and Adina had never lived with me. And they'd spend as much time as we can get with them. We were in the very honeymoon phase, so we were taking them out constantly, right? And then it was just me and Alicia in the house at the time, so we had the extra money to be taking them out constantly. Then once Adriana and David moved in, obviously the expenses doubled. David at the time was, short and chunky, so he was a really big eater. And then we'd have all 5 of the kids in the house.
Mm-hmm.
and we were like barbecuing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, we're always going nuts, and we're taking them out like all the time. And then the child support started going all over the place, and that's when things started getting a little bit tighter. Adrian and David are in. We get to the point to where Sean needs to move in, and Sean still didn't know anything about like even though me and Yvette were together after he was born,
Mm-hmm.
and then me and Yvette got married after he was born, and then we separated after he was born,
Mm-hmm.
and all that shit. He still thought that Claudia was his mom.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the whole family knew that he wasn't, but I left it that way. Even though Yvette complained about it, I told her, I was like, look, dude, I was like, you made choices, I've made choices, we've made choices, but because of him, like, we're not changing it. I was like, eventually, once he's mentally mature enough, we're gonna explain the situation. I was like, we don't have to get into these dramatic details. We could sugarcoat it. We can make it nice and simple, however the fuck you want to comment it. I was like, but, eventually, 13, 14, 15 years old when he's mature enough.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to this point. He's already living with us, with me and Alicia. And my mom's like, hey, she was like, I'm going to take Sean by himself to Mexicali with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, what about Adrian and David? They were like, she was like, no. She was like, I asked them, but they said they're going to their mom's house. And I was like, all right, fine. So she shows up and she's like, give me the birth certificate. And when they were coming home and she gave it to immigration, they they checked the birth certificate. They asked him the bullshit questions. They crossed the border, and then he was like, "Hey," he was like, "I've never seen my birth certificate." He was like, "Can I see it real quick?" And I think he was 11 or 12, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, he was either 11 or 12. And he grabs it, and he was like, "Hey," he was like, "Why doesn't it say that my mom's name is Claudia?" And she was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And then he was like, "Who's Dela? Who's Dila?" Because he couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah.
He was like, "Why did it say Yvette?" And then my mom was like, "Oh shit." She was like, "You know what?" She was like, "Well," she was like, "Why don't you talk to your dad about it when you get home?" He was
Oh,
like,
this was
"Why?"
your mom that
My
took him?
mom, yeah.
Oh,
This was my mom that took him.
okay. I thought it was
And
Claudia that took him.
no, it was my mom.
Okay.
And like my mom didn't think anything of it when he was like, "Oh, let me see my birth certificate."
Yeah, and just okay, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, she was like, "Okay, like whatever, it's a fucking birth certificate." So he grabs it and he flips out, and then he gets home. Like he finally falls asleep on the drive because it's a 3-hour drive. And then she calls me and she was like, hey, she was like, she was like, I kind of made a mistake. And then she tells me what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, fuck. I was like, oh, well. I was like, well, I mean, I was like, he was going to find out. Regardless, he was going to
Mm-hmm.
find out. So when he gets home the next day, he wakes up and he was like, I don't want to go to school. And I was like, no, dude. I was like, you're going to school, man. And he was like, no, he's like, I don't want to go to school. And I was like, why don't you want to go to school? And he was like, oh, he's like, you're a fucking liar. And he starts flipping out, dude, cussing, yelling, little kid just freaking the fuck out. And I was like, I didn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, no, you guys fucking lied to me and this and that. I was like, I didn't lie. He was like, oh, well, this and that. And I was like, he was like, you guys are holding secrets from me. And I was like, there's no secret. I was like, we just didn't tell you about it. We didn't talk to you about it. And he was like, no, that's unfair. And I was like, no, dude. I was like, you have to understand. I was like, I was like, this is what you have to understand. I grew up with you guys. There's some things that I do know and I don't know. I do understand and I don't understand. I was like, in this situation, I was like, I have absolutely no clue. I was like, this is all, brand new, uncharted waters for me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so I was like, you have to understand this. I was like, because of this and because of your life and blah, blah, and this and that. I was like, I was like, she was struggling at the time. I was like, I was better off. I was like, and we made this decision. I was like, I was like, Claudia, being your mom, I was like, I wasn't going to sit there and rip you out and, completely change your world. I was like, but I was like, how big of a secret can it be? I was like, you're 3 months older than your sister. I was like, you're in January and she's in April. So yeah, 4 months older than your sister. I was like, how big of a secret is that? I was like, everybody knows. I was like, your grandparents over there know. I was like, your mother knows. Claudia knows. I was like, we all know. We just had to wait for you to be mature enough to be able to understand this. So I, drew him out the picture. And then it only took maybe a couple days for him to
Mm.
finally open up about it.
Mm.
And then he was like, I want to try to spend more time with Yvette. And I was like,
So prior to that, they didn't really have much of a relationship,
they had zero relationship.
and she was okay with that.
Yes and no. Yes and no. For the most part, yeah, she was fine with it. But then all of a sudden, she was just like, oh, well, I wanted this and I wanted that. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, you need to talk to him.
Mm.
I was like, and he doesn't know that you're his biological mom. I was like, and he's not ready to know that. I was like, so if he asks, like, why do you want to take me? You're going to have to tell him, like, so that way you could just be with your brother and your sister. I was like, eventually we'll get to that point where he's ready to know and understand.
Mm.
And she was like, no, I'm good. And I was like, all right. And I mean, this was like all right around the same time. Like, kids were already living with me. So even when the kids were living with me, they were like, oh, can we bring Sean? And she was like, no, not this time. And there was a few times that she was like, hey, I'm gonna take the kids out. She was like, so just have Sean ready. She actually did. So I didn't mind. I didn't mind, but I mean, she went into her own world and deal once the kids moved in with me,
Mm.
and I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like, she made her own like life,
Just.
basically,
Mm-hmm.
basically. But I mean, I don't like to talk shit.
No. We all make decisions, and that's their
Yeah, and you
decisions.
just have to learn how to live with them.
Exactly.
So it's just that was, I think that was like the biggest thing out of everything. It's just when I saw Adriana walk to me. When I saw Adriana walk to me, it changed my whole fucking world.
Mm. I bet.
So I turned into 100% fucking dad mode. I even told Alicia, I was like, hey, I was like, if you ever expect for me to side with you over my kids, I was like, it's not gonna ever fucking happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then we decided to have a baby, and that was rough.
How so?
It took us
Took a while.
a couple of years, almost 3 years, dude,
Mm.
for her to finally get pregnant. There's a lot of arguing with that. She was like, oh, look, she's like, you got them pregnant quick as fuck, but you can't get me pregnant. I was like, oh, motherfucker. She was like, go get a sperm count. And I was like, why do I need to get a sperm count? I was what, 32, 33,
Mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. And, her taking me out of retirement. Ethan was 10, and her taking me out of retirement from making babies. I was like, fuck, dude. I was like, I was like, having another kid isn't the biggest deal. It's starting over that was scary as fuck.
Yeah, I bet.
So, but then she was like, just go get the sperm count. And I was like, dude, I was like, you're telling me to go rub one out into a cup and go hand it to somebody as soon as I'm done. Like, that's pretty fucking awkward. And then she was like, what if it's your sperm count? I was like, dude, I was gonna have 5 really good reasons.
Yep.
So I have 5 really good reasons why I'm pretty sure that it's not me.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, completely out of left field, she got pregnant. And then along comes, just like her mother, blonde haired, blue eyed little firecracker.
Yeah.
And she's been bossing us around ever since, dude. It's fucking nuts. It's so much fun. Everybody looks at me like I'm her fucking gardener slash babysitter and shit.
Have you taught her any Spanish?
She understands a lot of it, but because of her age, like when I was a kid, before school, before I started kindergarten, the only thing we spoke was Spanish, 100% Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I learned English when I started school. I can't do the same thing, and I mean even today, there's a couple of kids in her preschool that one of them is Chinese,
Mm-hmm.
and the mom speaks good English. It's not like completely clear. She has a big accent and everything, but you can understand everything she's saying. But they don't speak any English to him at
Mm.
all
Really?
up until now. Like now, she's like, yeah, now she's like, he started picking up a lot of words really fast. She's like, now we're talking to him mainly in Chinese, but there's some things that he's like missing. Um, to try to speak more in English. So she was like, we're starting to introduce more English. She was like, but we don't want him to lose the Spanish, or we don't want him to lose the Mandarin.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah, it is.
I told her, I was like, that's perfect. I was like, that's why I'm completely fluent. I was like, the more I tried to teach the kids, the more English got in the way.
Yeah.
So like when all five of the kids were young, all I wanted was Spanish, and my family was on board with it. But then moms were like, no, 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 like they don't need Spanish. And I was like, no, the more languages you know, the
It's to
more
your
you're going to be
advantage.
worth.
Yeah. It's a big.
So,
I mean, as you know, like being anywhere in work or life, I
mm-hmm,
mean, it helps so
yeah,
much when you have that
mm-hmm,
ability to jump back and forth.
yeah.
You
And
know,
that's what,
even the simplest things of just saying hello to somebody, um, just one of our peoples. I'll walk by and say, "Hola, buenas tardes," or "Buenos días."
yeah,
And it's just that little bit of just gesture that you can make. It's just enough.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's why. I mean, 17 years in printing, and my first language at work was Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Like the majority of the people there were all Spanish speakers. So half of the time I was sit there translating for them. If it wasn't for that, they would never have trusted me. They'd be like, "No, we're not going to show this white boy over here
Mm-hmm.
anything." So me helping them out and everything, it helped me out at the end of the day. Right? It
Yeah,
was a really good ride. It was a really good ride up until
yeah.
the end.
I just had a party recently where we went to family get together, and I had to like break it down, like, oh, oh, I would have said hi earlier, but I wasn't sure, like how I would say hello because my Spanish is so broken.
No,
Like it's literally gets very broken a lot of the times, and but they understood what I was trying to say.
yeah.
Yeah, I just put the words together.
When I first got into printing, right, it was the really big gap. When once my grandma moved out. When my grandma moved out, I think I was 16 or 17. So up until what was I? I was like 22, 23 when I got into printing.
Huh.
And I mean that big gap, that those few years, my Spanish tanked. I wasn't going to Mexico. I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
visiting family. I was having all the kids, and I was just so busy at
Mm-hmm.
taking care of the kids, taking care of my family, that I didn't go visit my parents' family.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to Ventura, where their Spanish is horrible, except for the aunts, and I wasn't going to Mexico at all. I had probably like 6 years, 7 years
Mm-hmm.
that I didn't go to Mexicali like at all. And when I got into printing, I started talking to a lot of them, and I was mispronouncing things, or I was saying things backwards because a lot of things in English are
Yeah.
backwards from when you say it in Spanish.
Yep.
And they'd laugh, and I was like, "What's wrong with you guys?" And they're like, "No, no, lo dijiste mal, lo dijiste mal." Okay,
Yeah.
pero me entiendes?
Yeah.
Sometimes talking shit like the whole time. Like, okay, did I say it wrong? But you understood what I'm saying, right? And they're like, yeah, yeah. I was like, okay, well then shut the fuck up. Like, if you want me to be a dick,
Huh.
we're in California, so why don't you speak English? They're like, oh, now you want to be racist. I'm not racist, dude. How long have you been in
Huh.
California? They're like, oh, 30 years, and you still don't fucking know how to talk to me in English. So, but I mean, working with them for so long, like all the Spanish just flooded back in,
Mm-hmm.
which has benefited me now. Now that with the whole life insurance and everything, with the Medicare side, there are still like some details and everything, more detailed words, bigger words in Spanish and everything. A few things that I still don't remember, never knew, that I still have to pick up on. But as far as like the life insurance, it's been so helpful, dude. It's been so helpful, and I was, me being
Help
what,
sharpen those communication skills.
yeah, well, me being the second generation Mexican American.
Mm-hmm.
Now my kids are the third generation, and by the third generation is usually where the Spanish washes out, and it sucks for me that I'm going to be part of that statistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wanted my kids to be fluent.
Any of them?
None of them. So the baby does understand. But because she's learning both languages,
Mm.
she'll say a few words in Spanish, but mainly in English. Everything will be in English. So if you talk to her in Spanish, she'll respond to you in English.
Mm.
She'll never respond in Spanish.
Mm.
Aside from like if you're like, hey, if you call her, you're like, hey, Aurelia, come here, and she's like, Monday. Instead of saying what, because I
Yeah.
hate when my kids say what to me.
What?
What? Like what do you mean what? Who are you talking to? So she'll respond like Monday. She won't say like I want soup. She's like, hey, I want some sopa. Like random things, but everything that you tell her in
And the little
Spanish.
translation of Monday is like, go ahead and give command.
Mm-hmm. It's though just saying it like that. It's a more respectful way of responding.
It
Like
is,
instead of
but it's
it's
more of a submissive. I think the little translation is
yeah
like give command,
yeah
like Monday,
because
like go ahead, give command.
if it was like in Spanish and you're like hey like come here and they walk in there like gay.
Yeah.
That's how
Like
I hear what.
what?
Yeah, that's how I hear what. Like,
Yeah.
who are you talking to like that? No, you're going to talk to me with respect.
Yeah.
The main thing that I've always taught the kids is respect.
Yeah.
The main thing I teach my kids is respect. That's why I don't have to yell at them. That's why I've never had to think about spanking them or anything if they misbehave
Mm.
or if they act out or, whatever the case is. They make a mistake. If they see the disappointment in my face, that has worked out really, really well for me. They see the disappointment, and that's what, hurts them
Yeah.
rather than being yelled at or spanked and this and that. But now that they're getting older, like Adriana's 20, David called. David called me yesterday, and I've been arguing with him for probably like 2 months now about going to the doctor. So he's way out there in Kentucky and Tennessee, and he said that he started having problems with sleeping,
Mm.
and then he says he's having anxiety issues. And I was like, okay, well, I was like, lack of sleep can cause anxiety. I was like, so go to a doctor, talk to the doctor, see what they say. I was like, you might have apnea. I was like, it might be less than apnea. I was like, just go talk and consult.
Mm.
And he still hasn't made this appointment. And I'm like, dude, you're in the army. Like, you have good benefits. You'll have good doctors. I was like, you got to take care of this.
Yeah, but where were we at in our 20s or late teens? Doctors, it's like we thought it's
Oh,
invincible, man.
I had awesome insurance.
I never went.
Yeah, I had awesome insurance. That's one thing I was really lucky about. Like when I was at the dealership, it was great insurance. And then I had the Gap, and I put the kids on the Medi-Cal. But as soon as I got into printing, as soon as I hit the printing, and I had Kaiser,
Uh,
I was like, dude, Kaiser, one-stop shop.
yeah.
Like one-stop shop. I could do everything except for dental here,
Yeah, that's true.
and we were there as much as we needed to be.
I was very much against insurance. It wasn't until I met her that she's like, "You don't have insurance?" I'm like, "I don't need it." I'm like, "What if you get sick?" I never get sick.
Yeah, no.
And that was my
Well,
way
yeah,
of
no. I
thinking.
rarely, I rarely ever needed it. I rarely ever used it. That's another thing. Thinking about that. Thinking about that.
Yeah?
Right after the baby was born. By
Which
then we
one?
were already on the
Okay,
baby.
baby.
By the time Aurelia was born, Alicia had already had the stress about like having first Adriana and David move in, and then after that Ethan moved in, and right after like what was it, 3 weeks after Ethan moves in, or right after Sean moves in,
Mm.
right after that happens, we have the baby. And then all those stresses come in. So she has Adriana and David were excelling. They were doing great in school. Sean, we're getting him into a new mentality, a more focused mentality,
Mm.
a lot of structure building and everything. And then we have the baby too. So we're dealing with a
A newborn?
11-year-old newborn
Mm.
and a very newborn. So she's freaking out. She's stressed. And I was like, dude, I was like, relax, man. Like, don't worry about this. Like, right now we're at a period of adjustment. We have to adapt.
Mm.
You as a new parent, me as a new parent. I was like, the kids involved too. And she was like, no. She was like, but you need to do. She was like, why don't you tell me what to do with them and this and that? I was like, because I have no fucking clue, man.
Mm.
And she was like, no, but you're the one with all the experience. I was like, no. I was like, I have the experience with the newborn. I was like, I'll take her all fucking day. I was like, I'll handle that shit.
Mm.
I was like, as far as the teens and then, the preteen, and all that. I was like, I have no fucking clue what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is all brand new to me. I was like, Adriana is like basically the guinea pig. David is the second test run. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
then Sean, Adina, Ethan, and then, we get to the baby and we should basically be pros. I was like, every single one of them have a different, character to them. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, so none of them are ever going to be the same.
Yeah.
I was like, I
No
have
two
no
are ever
fucking
the
clue what I'm
same.
doing. So we get into all these arguments and then she starts telling me, she's like, we need to go see a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we don't need to see a therapist. I was like, my therapy is talking to you so we can come up with a resolution, with a
Yeah.
resolve. And she's like, no, but this, but that, and starts going off about it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally give in. And I was like, fine. I was like, fine. I was like, if it's going to make you feel better, let's go see a therapist. I was like, I honestly don't see that we have any problems. I was like, we have very good communication. I was like, we talk really well with the kids. I was like, they're very open with us too. I was like, let's go to the therapist. So we go sit down with this guy, and he's like, all right, what do you guys want to talk about? And I was like, go ahead. I was like, you go first. And she goes off, dude. She's talking about everything and anything, everything under the stars and the sun and everything, dude. Like, she just goes out, and he looks at me, and he's like, how do you feel about that? I was like, no, no. I was like, just let her keep going. And she's going, and she's talking, but there was no complaints. It was not, like, bitching and complaining about, like, my husband sucks and the kids are fucking driving me crazy. She was just like, dude, like, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So we finally
Just
get
needs the
done.
vet.
Yeah, so we finally get done with her getting everything off her chest. And then she was like, I'm stressed out of my mind and this and that, blah, blah. So then he turns around and looks at me and he was like, and how do you feel about this? And I was like, well, I was like, she met me 10 years ago. I was like, this is a single girl.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, the only one she had to worry about was herself. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, she helped her mom. I was like, and then she meets me and I throw her into the deep end with her arms tied behind her back.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, with 5 kids. I was like, dude, I was like, I mean, it's been a struggle. I was like, but, it's been great. I mean, it's been a lot of fucking fun. I was like, we've done great. And we
Mm-hmm.
started talking about everything. So then he was like, okay. He was like, and how do you feel about stress? Fuck. I was like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
He was, what do you mean you don't know? I was like, dude, I was like, you're talking to a guy who already had 5 kids before he was 25 years old, before life experience. I was like, well, you call stress, I call fucking Tuesday, dude. I was like, I have no fucking clue what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, what about this and what about that? I was like, I have no clue, man. I was like, I'm learning as I go. I was like, so is she. I was like, what's parenthood? I was like, you go buy a bunch of fucking books and then you what? You go call the author and say, hey, dude, your
Mm-hmm.
book's a fucking liar? No, dude, there is no book.
Yeah.
Like, there is no
You
fucking
just
book.
learn with experience.
That's
Yeah.
it.
You do.
So then he's just like, all right, well, he was like, you guys want to know what I think? And she was like, yes, please. She was like, yes, yes, we need help. We need help. He was like, well, he was like, I'm going to commend you guys. He was like, this is amazing. He was like, I can't believe you guys are pulling this off. He was like, you guys are doing great and this and that and blah, blah, blah. He was like, I don't think you guys need to be here. He was like, but if you want to come, he was like, I mean, he was like, I'll take your money. He's like, I'll take your money. He was like, I'll let you talk about it all the time. And I was like, yep, thank you. And I stood up, shook his hand. I was like, I'm out. And she was like, no, no, wait, shut up, sit down. He was like, no. He was like, seriously. He was like, if you want to come back, he was like, if you want to do like one-on-one or still do this couple thing, he was like, I think you guys are great. He was like, I wish I could sit here and tell all my patients that come in and talk to me that they're
Yeah.
doing great. They're like, but you guys are doing fucking awesome. And like we walk out of his office after he talked, and she was like, yeah, she was like, I might come back. She was like, but I'll give you a call. He was like, yeah, if you want to do the one-on-one sessions.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, your insurance covers, I think like 15 sessions a year. He was
Nice.
like, blah, blah,
That's
blah.
good.
He was
Yeah.
like, so if you want to come back, he was like, you can come back once a month or use them up as fast as you can and see if it helps quick.
Yeah, honestly, I think a lot of it is just man, it's like we live in a different times. Honestly, it's just mental health. You don't realize it that just even having someone just to listen is just enough.
Yeah,
And I get that part. It's a different time, but I know for a lot of the times for guys, especially us Hispanic men, we're just always taught to just tough it out
yeah.
and suck it
Just
up and
bite your
keep
fucking
going.
tongue, bite your
You
fucking
know,
tongue
it's
and find the solution.
like the Titan Atlas is the weight of the world is on our shoulders. We just keep on being the strong one and keep on doing what we need to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is challenges that come with it, man. Like obviously you've dealt with depression. I mean, I've had my time of depression. It's like we
Hmm.
don't talk about it. We don't really get a chance to really explore those things and really kind of, you know, deconstruct it. Maybe because we're afraid that maybe the floodgates will come open or maybe like we'll be viewed weak, but we definitely have to have more open dialogue and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
Well,
man.
I
Like
mean,
not be afraid.
so I've had depression where I was positive, like this. Yeah, I'm fucking
Hmm.
depressed.
Yeah.
3 times in my life. The first time, the first time was bad. I like fucking blew up in front of my mom, and like she was even telling me too. Like I had this like huge outbreak and fucking flipped out. I put my hand through the wall. I was freaking my mom out, and then when I turned around and she was like, "No, calm down," and then I put my hand through the wall and I'm fucking screaming and yelling. I turned around and I saw my mom's face. It was the first time I'd ever seen my mom
Hmm.
with fear in her eyes looking at me, and then that completely changed everything for me that day. So I was just like, "Oh shit." Like, okay, now I need to get this together. Like, I'd never like snapped or anything before. I had already been dealing with that depression for too long by myself. But when I saw that, it's like something just clicked, and
Hmm.
then literally like the next day, I felt clean and clear.
Hmm.
The second time was I figured out it was when it was after the separation and everything that I didn't have the kids, and I figured out how to cope better without having the kids and without the alcohol because I was
Hmm.
only drinking. And then shortly after is when I think it was within a month or two, I met Alicia, and I'd stopped drinking for I think like 6 months. Crazy thing too, dude. And like a lot of people don't even believe it when we're talking about it. Like,
Hmm.
me and her will bring it up. We're like, dude, we were not intimate. We had no sex for the first, I think, like 4 or 5 months of our relationship.
Hmm.
And I mean, she was joking around, and she was like, you're not gonna get any. And I was like, you're talking to a guy with 5 kids, dude. Like,
Hmm.
if you think you're gonna hold off longer, like it's not happening. Like, I've already done that one. So I mean, like, we had no sex. The thing that we fucking built the most was communication, dude.
Yeah.
She to the day, me and her can still sit there and talk for hours.
That's good.
I mean,
That's when you know you
honestly,
have a good partner there when you just talk and just
right?
communicate that.
So, and then today's depression is something completely different, and same thing. I just figured out how to redirect the focus. Like, I mean, you saw that recently. I've
Hmm.
started digging that fucking hole, and it's really comfortable, dude. Especially at our age now, fucking hitting the 40s and shit.
Right
It's
there.
depression is really fucking comfortable, dude. And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
look at this hole, and then you find that hole and you fucking dig into it and you
Hmm.
fucking bury in like you're gonna fucking hibernate and shit.
Hmm.
And then I got into that these past couple months, and then when I popped my head out of this hole and I'm looking around, and what I didn't realize was it was affecting everybody.
Hmm.
My mom was dragging her feet around the house, like all upset. Adriana was not in a good mood, and I mean, Adriana's always in a good mood. Sean doesn't ever come out of his room. Um, I was masking a lot of it from Ethan
Hmm.
because I mean he's the one that suffered the most loss,
Yeah.
and I mean that's something too that a lot of people will never understand until it gets dropped on them, dude.
Hmm.
He lost his mom one day, which is his mom. But the one that played more role in his life and did so much more emotionally and mentally was his grandma. And I didn't know that. I thought Claudia was doing everything and she just lived with her parents.
Yeah.
And then to lose your mom one day and exactly 7 days later lose, the rock in your life too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, with him, we have him set up with the therapy outlets and everything. in school and out of school. With Adina, she's only doing it at school, and Sean's like, I'm good. Like nothing ever happened. And it fucking freaks me the fuck out.
Maybe he's just processing different. Like I said, like no two people are the same,
Hmm.
different characters and all that.
So
So
I'm not gonna argue it right now until I
yeah,
see something different. I told him as far as the school goes, with therapy at school, what they do is they'll get the therapist to come in, and therapists will talk to their students um, once biweekly.
it's the one I've noticed is the ones that act out, the ones that can't communicate or understand what's going on with them internally and can't express externally. Those are the ones that like children, like they'll throw little tantrums, but they'll do things subconsciously. They'll do things that they don't even realize they're doing. Those are the ones that you just need to learn how to have that communication and
Right.
talk. Have a little more patience, have a little more time to talk, and maybe try to find a common ground just to kind of like, all right, how can we get these words out of you? How can you express what you're really feeling? Because yeah, a lot of even adults have problems communicating because
Yeah.
they can't put together words that they're feeling. Like I've gone through it myself where it's like I can't even come up with the words. It's like feelings.
Right.
Like how do you describe feelings
Hmm.
and that feel or that vibe, that sense that you say in that whole? It's like you feel this, but I don't know where it's coming. Where's the root of it? I'm trying to grasp from different directions. Where is this coming from? What's the root of it?
Right.
How do I get to the source? And a lot of it is just being able to communicate it. It's
Yeah.
it's, it's hard.
Well, for me, once you like step back and look at it, the only thing that's gotten me out of depression was me like latching on to better the kids.
Mm,
Like every time, the first time it was not too long after David was born. It was not too long after David was born, and that was that whole turnaround for me
mm,
to focus on them. The second time, it was because the kids weren't there, but when they did show up there, that's what I held on to the most. So when they left, instead of me like doing the stupid shit that I was doing then, I was calling them constantly. Then I started working out a lot, just to keep my mind busy. I was boxing at the time too. Now it's same thing, going straight back because of the way it's affecting me. Um, I'm keeping myself busier on the kids rather than focusing on my bullshit.
mm,
So I keep finding that. Alicia keeps trying to talk to me about it, and I'm like, hey, dude, like, I don't want to get too far into my thoughts. If I get too far into my thoughts and I start letting it all out, like, there's some shit that should be said, there's some shit that should be left unsaid.
mm,
At this point right now, I'm going to leave everything unsaid. So Ethan with his therapy, Sean, same shit. I was trying to get him to do the therapy. I have him doing that school therapy, which is only bi-weekly, so it's the minimal. And he's like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So I told him, I was like, hey, you know what? It doesn't hurt to try.
mm,
And then when I would try to talk to him about it, he would just like shut down. So rather than talking to him about it, I'm just talking to him about nothing and everything.
mm.
Like we're babbling about nothing. We're talking about everything except for the biggest problem. The
The
thing
elephant in
that's
the room.
but the thing that scares me though is that with me talking to Sean about it like that is that he's gonna bury it. And then, in a few years it's all gonna come out.
Hmm.
And he's gonna do it by himself.
Well, just keep having that open dialogue. Just keep communicating. That's all you
Yeah.
can
Which
do.
is which is what I tell most parents
Yeah.
too. I'm like, you know what? The thing that I pride myself the most with is not that like I hear it a lot. And I mean, I'm told a lot more than I ever want to hear it, dude. I'm always being told like, oh, you're a great dad and this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
you're like a picture perfect dad to your kids. I was like, hey, dude, you have no fucking clue what I went through my whole fucking life and my kids' whole fucking lives. I don't need that praise. I don't want that praise.
Mm-hmm.
Like if that was true, then my kids would be fucking aces. everything would be fucking picture perfect, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Life isn't perfect. I'm not fucking perfect.
No, no one's perfect, and
Like,
no one will be. All we can do is just the best we can do is what we got, and just how we react to things.
yeah.
So,
So, but I mean, it's so much fun, dude. Because like they're like, oh, I'm just looking for perfect.
mm-hmm.
Why the fuck would you ever want perfect?
Yeah, perfect's just a
Boring as
moment,
fuck.
a captured moment
Yeah.
where you think like a photograph, you could just capture that one moment because it's perfect, but things keep moving,
Mm-hmm.
things keep progressing, nothing ever the same. It's life's in a constant state of change.
Yep. And that's what I explained to the kids. Is like since they recently moved in, like Ethan recently moving in, he was like, oh, he's like, but he's like, I don't want things to change.
Mm,
And I mean, if you wanted to be like more realistic, you like, hey, dude, like look at what just happened. Everything, things have changed. I told him, I was like, hey, dude, I was like, things change every day.
yeah, they
Today
do.
is not like yesterday. Tomorrow is not going to be anything like today.
Exactly.
Everything fucking changes. All you have to do is embrace it.
Yep. And that's a good high note to end the podcast so we could